Chapter 1335. The injuries on his body were very serious. Although they couldn't see the extent of his injuries, his chaotic aura was proof enough. Moreover, it seemed that he had been injured for a while. If this dragged on, his internal organs would be affected. That was why Xiao Su made this suggestion when he was about to leave. However, the other party didn't seem to care at all. This young master's problem. There's no need for Lord to worry about it. Higashio Motetsu was also a conceited person, so he returned the other party's words without changing a word. This person doesn't know what's good for him. Master is doing this for his own good. It's fine if he doesn't appreciate it, but he's still so rude. After Higashio Motetsu left, Hualing complained indignantly. Higashio Motetsu's identity is there. It's not easy for him to come and deliver information. Don't complain. The most important thing now is to think about what to do now, Water Spirit said as she rolled her eyes at Hualing. Hualing nodded. Thinking about it, she agreed. Actually, his injuries shouldn't be serious. Why does it feel so strange? Ethereal frowned. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't know anything about this unpredictable Higashio Motetsu. At this time, Turin frowned and asked the person in the seat of honor, Master, do you think young Master Dongting's words are trustworthy? After all, we are enemies with the Moon Palace. Could it be a trap? This king believes in Iron. Xiao Su's expression was calm. Water Spirit and the others nodded. Their master's judgment had never been wrong. They believed in him unconditionally. Then what should we do? Hualing asked. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Su turned to Water Spirit. How's the progress of your investigation of the battle 15 years ago? After being reminded by her mistress, Water Spirit finally remembered this. Recently, Pigeon Feather's energy had been focused on the little Wangfei. She had forgotten to report this matter. She immediately stepped forward and said clearly, someone did cause trouble in the battle 15 years ago. The Fu family was the supervisor of the army and only knew how to talk on paper. They interfered with Chu de Leoi's march and caused the entire army to be wiped out. Because of the right prime minister's exoneration, the instigator escaped punishment and was promoted and moved to Jingdo. However, I suspect that things aren't that simple. The Fu family's people have never been good people. There is nothing they can't do. Those tens of thousands of lives were sacrificed just like that, damn. Hualing spat out, his eyes filled with disgust. The rich are not benevolent, the officials are not righteous. How many eunuchs are not like this? Ethereal, who had been silent the entire time, shook his head and sighed. Xiao Su raised his hand and the people below immediately quieted down. He said in a heavy voice, this matter is similar to Ben Wang's guess. Water Spirit, secretly send the evidence of this matter to the left Prime Minister's Fu. He will naturally know what to do when the time comes. Water Spirit nodded. Does Mistress want to use this matter to delay the left Prime Minister and the right Prime Minister while they are fighting? Xiao Su nodded. And, since we already know Ian's location, then we don't have to wait any longer. We can use their infighting to attract attention and make it easier for us to act. Mistress is right. His Majesty wants to use the right Prime Minister to suppress the left Prime Minister and control us. In reality, he doesn't know that you have never conspired with the left Prime Minister. Even if the left Prime Minister's faction falls, we won't lose anything. Hualing smiled mischievously and continued, we have given the left Prime Minister a weapon to counterattack. When the time comes, when they fight, we will be the ones to benefit. Turin gave Hualing a chestnut. When Hualing bared his teeth, he said coldly, you speak as if we are bandits. Pay attention to your words. Hualing rolled his eyes at the sky. Xiao Su continued, Turin, send hidden guards to infiltrate the imperial palace. No matter what method you use, you have to figure out the guards and the layout around Yuran Palace and determine the rescue route. Turin immediately accepted the order. Then he raised his head and said seriously, but Mistress, even if we determine the rescue route, we can't act rashly. The elite troops will only arrive outside the capital after 10 days. The other fierce cavalry are also on the way, but the fastest group will arrive in 3 days. Xiao Su's eyes were indifferent without any warmth, as if he was thinking. He was silent, and everyone was silent as well. Just when everyone thought that he would not speak again, his sharp gaze swept across everyone in the room, and his thin lips moved slightly. This prince knows, so Earth Spirit, this prince will give you at most 3 days' time. No matter how tight the security is, this prince will not care what methods you use, but you will dig a path out of that impregnable fortress. 3 days? Could it be that Mistress won't wait for the elite troops to arrive before making a move? Everyone was shocked. But the mistress in front of them, although she was sitting there with a clean and elegant temperament, the coldness emitted from her body made them tremble involuntarily. Their mistress had always been a man of her words. No one dared to question or refute her decisions. Moreover, this was related to the young princess's safety. In the past, Mistress was not willing to leave Mistress' side for even a day, let alone now that several days had passed. The battle this time was very difficult, but they were going to risk it all. Whether it was for the young princess, or for the anger in their hearts that had been suppressed for so many years. Yes, this subordinate obeys. Turin and the others bowed their heads and solemnly accepted the order. Xiao Su shifted his gaze and looked out of the window. The moonlight was just like usual, but the little fellow beside him was not here. In his eyes, the moonlight was so lonely. Little fellow, wait for 3 more days. I will definitely bring you back safely. The night retreated, and the sun rose from the horizon. The people who were working at sunrise picked up their hoes and leisurely went to the fields. The mountains and fields were filled with a peaceful atmosphere. The stalls and peddlers in the city also began to do business. The streets were filled with people who got up early to buy vegetables. It was bustling with noise and excitement, and the world was peaceful. However, in one part of the capital, it seemed as if dark clouds were shrouding it. The atmosphere was so heavy that it seemed as if water was about to drip down. Servant girls went in and out, and the basin in their hands was filled with blood. It was very frightening. Everyone was silent, not daring to make a sound. The entire prince's mansion was deathly silent. After half an hour, the atmosphere relaxed a little. The housekeeper stood by the bed and said with tears in his eyes, "Lord, you were injured so seriously. How could you get out of bed without permission? Look, your wound has split open again." The doctor said that if you don't cherish yourself, I'm afraid. Lin Jiangdong stood at the side and couldn't help but say, "Lord, it's all thanks to the doctor's superb medical skills. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as going to the gates of hell." The person on the bed who was scolded by everyone looked at the top of the bed with an ashen face. Ever since he got out of bed to see Pang Zhijing's body, he had vomited blood and fainted before he could walk out of the room. When he woke up again, he looked like this. No one knew what he was thinking. At this time, a guard came in and reported softly, "Lord, Crown Prince Pang has arrived and said that he wants to visit you." Chapter 1336. Crown Prince Pang is here? Lin Jiangdong furrowed his brows in deep thought. When Wang Yi went to the bottom of Fengtai Mountain to look for someone, he had clearly rejected Pang Huang and said that the cooperation was invalid. At this time, he came again. It was not as simple as just visiting a patient. Thinking of this, Lin Jiangdong immediately turned to the person on the couch and asked, "Your Highness, do you want to see Crown Prince Pang?" At this time, the pair of absent-minded eyes slowly regained their spirit. However, compared to the past, it was only the difference between a firefly and starlight. No. It was a simple word, but it was filled with endless coldness. Lin Jiangdong had already expected this result. Lord had blamed Pang Huang for injuring the princess. In the eyes of many, this was just a trivial matter. However, he knew that Lord was truly angry. Previously, he had underestimated Pang Zhijing's position in Lord's heart. The guard returned and stood in the room with his head lowered. Crown Prince Pang said that Lord is heavily injured and won't disturb you. However, he asked that you return the princess body. After all, she is their southern blue princess. It is inappropriate to leave her in the prince's mansion. When these words were spoken, the room fell into a dead silence. Even Lin Jiangdong and the housekeeper didn't dare to make a sound. Who didn't know that Lord was like this for the sake of the southern blue princess? He ignored his own injuries and personally went to the bottom of the cliff to search for her without rest. In the end, the beauty had already passed away and only a broken body was left. They had never seen Lord so sorrowful. Even when he woke up today, he still wanted to see the Southern Blue Princess. Such deep attachment made people unable to bear to see him like this. At this juncture, Crown Prince Pang actually dared to come and ask for the princess. This was simply hitting the muzzle of Lord's gun. Let him take her away. Just when everyone thought that Lord would be angry, they heard him calmly say this. Lin Jiangdong thought that he had changed and was no longer tied down by love. However, when he looked up, he saw a trace of pain on that handsome and elegant face. He couldn't help but be surprised. Yes. The guard accepted the order and left. All of you can leave as well. Xiao spoke again. Everyone knew that the most important thing for him now was to rest, so they all retreated. After a while, only the butler and Lin Jiangdong were left in the room with a bowl of medicine in their hands. Is something the matter, sir? Lin Jiangdong knew that this wasn't the time to talk about business, but this was a special case, so he could only brace himself and report. Yes, there is a matter regarding your engagement with the Southern Blue Nation. Xiao glanced at him indifferently, indicating for him to continue. Lin Jiangdong did not dare to delay and quickly said, Princess Zhijing died in an accident, and the Nansong Kingdom expressed their deep regret. In order not to delay the marriage between the two countries, they have sent another princess from the capital. She is now on her way. His Majesty said that as soon as the princess arrives, they can get married immediately. After saying this, Lin Jiangdong immediately lowered his head, not daring to look at the person on the bed. When Xiao heard this, his lips curled up slightly, revealing an extremely light smile. Yes. Xiao's gaze turned cold as he turned to look at the exquisite lock in his hand. The cold sensation was similar to what little rascal had said to himself that day. She was only a tool for a marriage alliance. It didn't matter if she was the princess or not. As long as that person represented the Southern Blue royal family, it was enough. Was that why Nansong had sent a replacement before her body had even turned cold? But did they really think that he, Xiao, was a garbage collection place? Perhaps in the past, he would have sacrificed his life for revenge, but now, it was impossible. Send a letter to Imperial Father. Tell him that this prince can only give the position of princess consort to Pang Zhijing. She is this prince's only wife, and before this prince passes away, I will not marry again. As for the marriage, tell him to find someone else. Xiao calmly said these words, but it set off a storm in the hearts of the other two people present. Lord, you absolutely can't do this. Have you forgotten our revenge plan? If you do this time, His Majesty will definitely be suspicious of you. Originally, when they went to the bottom of the cliff to search, they had already exposed their manpower. If it wasn't for His Majesty's attention being focused on Xiao, they would have already been exposed. If something else happened, His Majesty's suspicious nature would definitely attract His Majesty's attention. There's no need for nonsense. Do as this prince says. Xiao's face turned cold, his voice chilling to the bone. Lin Jiangdong knew that he couldn't change Lord's decision, so he could only sigh and agree. In the end, he helplessly left the room. The housekeeper walked to the bed and said to Lord, who had his eyes closed, Lord, this is the medicine that the doctor told me to brew. It's very effective for your injuries. Please drink it while it's hot. Xiao said without thinking, leave it there. The housekeeper looked troubled. Lord basically didn't drink the medicine these past few days. If this continued, it wouldn't be good for his injuries. He was silent for a while before speaking gently. This old servant remembers that when the princess was in the prince's manor, she also avoided the medicine. However, every time she was in front of Lord, she would obediently drink it. This old servant can see that the princess is very dependent on Lord and also very fond of him. If the princess was still here, she would definitely think of all kinds of ways to make you drink the medicine. If she was still here, I don't know how to make fun of me. She has never been one to suffer losses. The hoarse voice suddenly stopped laughing. The housekeeper couldn't help but look at the person on the bed as if he was lost in his memories. His expression was lonely and dejected. Lord, please restrain your grief. Xiao Ho's lips twitched slightly. He wanted to smile but couldn't. His eyes were filled with sorrow. After his mother left, they said their condolences to him. After the little rascal left, they also said their condolences to him. This sorrow, how could he control it? Just as the housekeeper sighed and prepared to leave the piece to his lord, he suddenly heard a trembling voice. Give the medicine to this king. Hearing this, the housekeeper was overjoyed. He immediately reached out to help his lord up and then handed over the bowl of medicine. Xiao Ho drank the medicine in one gulp and the bitterness spread through his mouth. It seemed like the little rascal was very afraid of this taste. She was someone who liked sweet things but not bitter things. Every time she drank medicine, it was torture. His eyes became much gentler. His pale fingers rubbed the exquisite lock as he thought back to every time she came to find him with the sound of the bell. That sound was clear and pleasant to hear. Now that he was shaking the exquisite lock, he didn't have that feeling. Actually, in the end, he didn't have any intention of using the exquisite lock to trap her. It was just that he liked the sound of the exquisite lock coming from her body. Listening to the sound of the exquisite lock coming from afar, he could use the speed of the sound to guess what her mood was the entire time. Using the details to distinguish, this was the highest level of expressing love. It was a pity that the two of them never understood it. At this time, another guard rushed in. Lord, there is a scholar outside who wants to see you. He says he has evidence of the Luo family being wrongly accused 21 years ago. Chapter 1337. As soon as the guard finished his words, Xiao Ho tightened his grip on the exquisite lock. Bring the man in. His deep and cold voice trembled slightly. For so many years he had been searching for evidence of the Luo family's wrongdoings and wanted to reverse the verdict. Unfortunately, too many years had passed, and those related to that year had been buried in the yellow soil. The remaining culprits were free and unfettered, and it was impossible to pry valuable information out of them. Lin Jiangdong rushed over after hearing the news, and stood beside the bed with a solemn face. At this moment, the man was brought in. It was a middle-aged man less than 40 years old. He was dressed in coarse linen clothes, and his shoes had several holes in them. Although he looked like a poor scholar, the vicissitudes of life couldn't conceal his youthful handsomeness. His body was thin, but his back was straight, and he had the pride of a scholar. Before entering the room, the man's face was filled with arrogance. After entering the room and seeing Xiao Ho lying on the bed, his expression changed. He stared at Xiao Ho for a moment, and it was hard to tell what he was looking at. How dare you? Salute our Lord when you see him. The guard beside him scolded coldly. The man came back to his senses and bowed. Wang Yu greets your highness Prince. Xiao Ho leaned against the wall of the bed and coughed a few times. Only then did he look at the person who had been sizing him up the moment he entered the room. Although his gaze wasn't disgusting, it was still displeasing to have someone look at him so unscrupulously. Who are you? Xiao Ho asked slowly. After Wang Yu bowed, he looked at Xiao Ho with a bit of affection in his eyes, but he didn't answer the question. I heard that Wang Ye was injured. How is his injury? Is it serious? The man's inexplicable concern made Xiao Ho narrow his eyes. Lin Jiangdong's face changed and he immediately scolded. Lord asked you a question. How can you change the subject? What are your intentions for entering the mansion? As he spoke, Lin Jiangdong had already ordered people to detain him. Wang Yu was a scholar after all, and he had never practiced martial arts. His body was weak, and his face turned pale at once. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, but he didn't seem to care. He looked at Xiao Ho gently and said with concern, I learned 2 days ago that you were seriously injured and in a coma. I was worried, so I came to the city to see you. This man's words sounded like nonsense to everyone. Lin Jiangdong peeked at Lord's gloomy face, and then turned to the guard. Why didn't you ask him clearly before bringing him in? Don't you know that your highness can't afford to waste time dealing with these muddle-headed people? He Jingdong, Wang Yu's name. Your highness, my name is Wang Ju. Over 20 years ago, our Wang family was friends with your mother's Luo family. Perhaps you are unfamiliar with me, but I know you very well. Wang clan? You are? Xiao Ho originally ignored him, but when he heard him mention the Luo family, his eyes widened. He couldn't hide his surprise, and his eyes were full of inquiry. Does your highness know of the Wang family that was the governor of Jiangnan 20 years ago? This commoner is the eldest son of the Wang family, Wang Yu said with a warm smile. Xiao Ho's eyes flashed with surprise. So you were the one who had an engagement with my mother? Correct, Wang Yu nodded, but his eyes dimmed. If it weren't for that accident, perhaps your mother and I would be living a warm and peaceful life now. You say you are the young master of the Wang family. Do you have any proof? Lin Jiangdong asked after looking at him suspiciously. It was better to be careful in this kind of matter. Wang Yu glanced at the guards holding him. Xiao Ho raised his hand, and they withdrew. Wang Yu also regained his freedom. He rubbed his wrist, which was hurt, and then took out a jade pendant. Someone quickly took it and handed it to Xiao Ho. This is polished from Yuanyang stone. Half of it was polished into a jade bracelet, and the other half was polished into this jade pendant. This is the engagement token between your mother and I. Your grandfather gave it to me. He said it was the family heirloom of your Luo family. You should have seen your mother wear that jade bracelet. Hearing Wang Yu's explanation, Xiao Ho touched the jade pendant, which was almost the same quality as the family heirloom left by his mother. His mind shook. He put the jade bracelet on Little Rascal, but in less than 3 days, it was back in his hands. It is indeed the family heirloom of our Luo family. Xiao Ho returned the jade pendant to him. So you believe my identity? Wang Yu looked at Xiao Ho with some joy. Xiao Ho didn't answer and asked, back then, the Luo family was searched and the Wang family was inexplicably silenced. Why are you still alive? Back then, the Wang family was assassinated by unknown people, and I went abroad to study and escaped. When I came back, it was a scene of desolation. Everything was the same, but the people were different. Although so many years had passed, he still felt grief every time he mentioned it. You said you have evidence of the Luo family being framed 21 years ago. What is it? Xiao Ho asked in a low voice. Wang Yu's expression flickered, and a difficult look appeared on his face. Seeing the change in Wang Yu's expression and his hesitant look, Xiao Ho's face suddenly sank. Although there was still a smile on his lips, it didn't reach his eyes. Young Master Wang, are you trying to say that you don't have any evidence at all? Wang Yu couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. He looked sincerely at Xiao Ho. This happened more than 20 years ago. Even if you were wronged, your mother didn't want you to be involved in the political power struggle back then. Moreover, in your current situation, it's not suitable for you to know these things. Now that I see you safe and sound, I'm relieved. Just pretend I never came. Xiao Ho coldly snorted. Do you think this king will let you leave this place so easily? If you don't hand over the evidence, then don't blame this king for not considering our old friendship. Wang Yu shook his head and said earnestly, Your Highness, you are living a peaceful life now. Don't think about the past. Before your mother died, she must have told you to live well and not pursue the past. Xiao Ho found his words laughable. This king wants to live well in order to redress the Luo family's injustice and avenge my mother. Back then, my mother was still thinking of you before she died, but she didn't expect you to be such a cowardly person. My mother's feelings for you have really been wasted. Wang Yu's eyes were filled with pain. Cici must have had a very painful time in those years. I didn't protect her well. Do you have any evidence in your hands? Xiao Ho glanced at the pain in his eyes. He knew that this person was also infatuated with love, but the most important thing now was to obtain the evidence in his hands. Originally, I had planned to take this secret to the grave. If I hadn't heard that your highness was seriously injured and on the verge of death, I wouldn't have risked my life to ask your highness for a meeting. However, it's fine. I don't have the ability to redress the Luo family's injustice. Perhaps your highness can do it. When Wang Yu said this, his chuckle was filled with helplessness and grief. Chapter 1338. Please speak, young Master Wang. Xiao Ho coughed softly. Although his face was pale, his expression was very focused. This matter started 22 years ago. Back then, The Luo family was a famous scholarly family with students all over the world. Many of their students were officials in the imperial court. At that time, the Luo family's reputation was known by everyone in the Sichuan. Not only did the Luo family produce many literary scholars, they also produced a few generals. They participated in several large-scale battles and protected our Sichuan's territory. Their reputation soared, and everyone knew that the Luo family was not only good at literature, but also martial arts. His originally high-spirited tone suddenly turned into a lament. However, fortune and misfortune depend on each other. Because of this, the Luo family's reputation was too great. The emperor, who had just ascended the throne a few years ago, was wary. Because his foundation was not yet stable at that time, and because he had lost a lot of manpower and resources before ascending the throne, he was very appreciative of the Luo family on the surface, but secretly, he was very dissatisfied with the Luo family. Coincidentally, one year, the emperor was traveling incognito. He happened to meet Cici, who was your mother, who was separated from me while we were shopping for lanterns. At that time, your mother was a talented woman who was famous in the capital. Her temperament was otherworldly, and her looks were enough to topple cities. No matter if it was the son of a noble family or a commoner, it was impossible not to be attracted to her. Thus, the emperor fell in love with her at first sight. The following part of the story was that the emperor sent people to investigate the woman's identity. He did not expect that she was the legitimate daughter of the Luo family, the family he had always wanted to eradicate. Furthermore, the woman was already betrothed to someone else. The emperor missed the beauty, but because of her status and the engagement, he could not eat or drink. At that time, Fu Jianrong, who was still a small minister, was Consort Yu's father and the current right prime minister. When he found out about the emperor's thoughts, he came up with an idea. He casually fabricated a crime to pin on the Luo family. Not only could he eradicate the Luo family, but he could also win over the beauty. The emperor, who was in a high position, had long been used to getting whatever he wanted. This perfect solution made him very happy, and he immediately ordered him to carry it out secretly. Later, the Luo family was wronged, the Wang family was destroyed, and the Fu family succeeded in pushing the Luo family out. They filled many official positions and grew in power. Slowly, they gained the ability to contend with the Liang family. Wang Yu's words not only shocked everyone, but also Xiao Ho. His fingers trembled, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Wang Yu thought that it was the first time he knew about this and was frightened. His expression became gentler as he said softly, "Yes, it is because of them that I have never appeared in front of you and told you about this. The people do not fight with the heavens. The emperor is the heavens of this country. No matter how powerful you are, you can't win against him. I believe that your mother did not tell you the truth because she did not want you to be involved in this mess so that you can grow up safely." Except for Wang Yu, who was in the dark, everyone else looked at the person on the bed worriedly. If what Wang Yu said was true, then all these years, Lord had spent so much effort to plot against the Liang family and Xiao Su. Wasn't he taking revenge on the wrong person? Xiao Ho's eyes were cold, but if one looked carefully, they would be able to see the turmoil in his eyes. His voice was low and hoarse as he said, word by word, "This prince found out that the Luo family and the Liang family had a dispute over the selection of the general to send out the troops. The children of the two families caused a dispute, and a young soldier of the Liang family was killed. So, the Liang family held a grudge and framed the Luo family. Therefore, the Liang family was the one who issued the decree to search the entire family. Even grandfather and the others were beheaded by Prime Minister Liang. Why does what you say contradict what this prince knows?" Wang Yu was startled. He had not expected him to know so much about what had happened in the past. He was not as ignorant as he thought. His expression became even more serious as he recounted the events of the past in detail. Back then, the Liang family and the Luo family did have a deep grudge, but this was not enough for the Liang family to act so viciously against the Luo family. Perhaps your highness only knows that the Liang family lost a soldier that year, but you do not know that there were 3 children of the Luo family who could no longer pick up weapons after that battle. So, in order to prevent the matter from getting out of hand, the two families have privately reconciled. I heard this from your mother herself. Your Highness may not believe my one-sided words, but I have a piece of evidence here that can prove who attacked the Wang family back then. As he spoke, Wang Yu took out a palm-sized box. Lin Jiangdong stepped forward to take it and presented it to Lord. The wooden box was opened, revealing what was inside. It was half a rusty iron arrow. At the tip of the arrow, there was an imprint. Although the imprint was a bit blurry due to the passage of time, it was still possible to recognize what was written on it. It was the word Yu. Lin Jiangdong picked up the iron arrow. As if he had thought of something, he hurriedly said, Your Highness, when His Majesty was still the Crown Prince, he had a team of elite hidden guards. The tip of their arrows had this imprint. The word Yu is one of His Majesty's names. That's right. Back then, it was these elite assassins who massacred the entire Wang family. When Wang Yu said this, his expression was bleak and sorrowful. Xiao Ho's gaze moved away from the iron arrow. He looked at Wang Yu and narrowed his eyes. Based on this iron arrow and your words, do you think this prince will easily believe you? As if he had already expected him to say this, Wang Yu said, 15 years ago, foreign enemies invaded our country. There was an army of over 10,000 that was inexplicably annihilated. Many of the Luo family's men were among them. Your Highness can investigate whether that failed battle was the will of heaven or man-made. What do you mean? Xiao Ho's gaze was astonished. Although the Luo family used the merits that they had achieved to change the execution of 9 generations to only the direct bloodline of the Luo family, allowing the other branches to escape the calamity, they could avoid the death penalty, but they could not escape punishment. The men were all banished to the borders. However, has Your Highness ever noticed that after so many years, how many of the Luo family's men have survived? They either died of illness or in accidents. Do you think there is such a coincidence? If it wasn't for the people above, they would have eliminated the weeds by the roots. However, if it wasn't for the person sitting on the dragon throne turning a blind eye, how could the Luo family, including the students, at least thousands of people, disappear so cleanly in those short few years? Just as Wang Yu finished speaking, he saw a trace of blood seeping out from the corner of Xiao Ho's mouth. He hurried forward but was stopped. He could only anxiously say to him, It's my fault. I shouldn't have told you this. Your body, no, you're right. After so many years, I only recognized a thief as my father. I even took revenge on the wrong person. Xiao Ho slowly finished speaking. His eyes were filled with absurdity. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body instantly sank into darkness. Lord. Chapter 1339. When Xiao Ho woke up again, the sky was already a bit dark. Lin Jiangdong was waiting on the side. When he heard the noise, he immediately asked, Your Highness, where do you feel uncomfortable? This one will go and call a doctor for you. Xiao Ho raised his hand to stop him. No need. Lin Jiangdong looked at the expressionless Lord and sighed deeply in his heart. Lord had just experienced the pain of losing his wife, and now he was told that he had taken revenge on the wrong person for so many years. Even if he was made of iron, he wouldn't be able to withstand this double blow. If his mind wasn't strong, he would have already collapsed. It was already not easy for Lord to be able to maintain his calm. Lord, do you believe young Master Wang's words? Lin Jiangdong raised his doubts. Xiao Ho was leaning against the bed with his eyes closed. He didn't open his eyes when he heard this, and just calmly and slowly responded, Teacher, do you still remember a manuscript we received many years ago? Lin Jiangdong immediately thought back. I remember. It was your grandfather who wrote to the Wang family. He said that many inconceivable things had happened to the Luo family recently, and that they were being restricted everywhere. He was afraid that something big was about to happen, so he wanted to entrust your mother and several young children to him and have him take them to Jiangnan to avoid the storm. However, this letter didn't seem to have been sent out in time. Xiao Ho revealed a mocking smile. It wasn't that he didn't have time to send it out, but that grandfather had already discovered who was secretly plotting against him. So if this letter was sent out, it would definitely implicate his close friend. Officials can still fight with officials, But how can they fight against a monarch who can cover the sky with one hand? At that time, we ignored this letter. Now that this prince combined with Wang Yu's words, we realized that the Luo family had already been set up by someone and was being nibbled away at step by step. This, Lin Jiangdong was surprised. Teacher, isn't this prince a failure? After so many years of planning, in the end, it was all for naught. How laughable! Xiao Ho raised his hand and covered his eyes, covering the emotions on his face. However, he couldn't hide the sadness that radiated from his body. Lin Jiangdong couldn't bear to see Lord like this, but he didn't know how to comfort him. At this time, there was a sudden commotion outside. Lin Jiangdong vented his anger. Whoever is making a ruckus outside and disturbing the Lord's rest, drag them out and punish them severely. Sir, it's young Master Wang who wants to see the Lord. The guard came in and reported. Lin Jiangdong was about to ask him to take the man away when he heard Lord say, "Let him in." Although he was worried about his health, Lin Jiangdong didn't dare to disobey his orders. He could only let someone bring Wang Yu in. Wang Yu wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and sighed emotionally. But he quickly thought of something. You said before that you wanted to take revenge. Was it true? Do I look like the kind of person who would lie? Xiao Ho put away the emotions on his face and laughed coldly. I have planned for many years and endured silently so that one day I can kill my enemies with my own hands and let them taste the pain my mother had suffered. Child, don't be impulsive. You can't win against them. Wang Yu urgently wanted to persuade him, but Xiao Ho raised his hand to stop him from continuing. I live for revenge. No matter what you say, you can't change this. Wang Yu opened her mouth but could only close it in the end. However, her eyes were still filled with disapproval. Does Uncle Wang have a place to go? If not, then stay in the Wang Fu. I will tell the steward to take care of you. I won't let you suffer. Seeing Wang Yu look helplessly at him, Xiao Ho withdrew the cold pressure on his body. He closed his eyes and spoke faintly. Wang Yu heard him call him Uncle Wang and was very excited. He knew that he had acknowledged him. Just as he was about to speak more with him, he saw that he was resting with his eyes closed. Wang Yu couldn't help but agree. Then he looked deeply at the face that was similar to the one in his heart before he stood up and quietly left. After the door was closed, Xiao Ho slowly opened his eyes. He opened the exquisite lock that had never left his hand. A faint darkness rose in his eyes. Little rascal, you're right. What kept me alive was hatred, but when you appeared, it wasn't that important anymore. But after you abandoned me, I'm only left with hatred. Chapter 1340. For the entire day, Xiao Ran did not send anyone to pick her up. Chu Qingyan sat in the courtyard, recalling the events that happened last night. She wondered if Xiao Ran had listened to her words. But when she thought of his expression when he left, she immediately rejected this idea. Her heart raced, hoping that there would not be any other unforeseen events. Right at this moment, Consort Yu's palace maid, Jade Rabbit, appeared in the courtyard. Chu Qingyan raised her brows slightly, very puzzled by her intentions. At this moment, Jade Rabbit had already walked in front of her. She bowed impolitely, then raised her head to look at her mockingly. Miss Chu, my consort invites you over. Chu Qingyan did not mind the sarcasm in her words. She was not in a hurry to get up and slowly asked, Did your consort summon me for something? Jade Rabbit chuckled. This is something that Miss Chu will have to ask my consort personally. It's getting late, so let's not delay any longer. Miss Chu, this way please. The other party's impoliteness gave her a bad premonition. Because of her appearance, Xiao Ran had begun to cooperate with his treatment, and the people she interacted with were much more respectful towards her. Now that they were acting like this, it seemed that something had happened. As she expected, when she arrived at the entrance of Xiao Ran's palace, she saw palace servants hurrying in and out. She originally wanted to ask why she had come to Xiao Ran's palace, but when she saw this scene, she could not help but shut her mouth. She was afraid that something had happened to Xiao Ran again. She followed Jade Rabbit into the inner hall. Just as she stepped into the inner hall, a teacup was thrown straight at her. Although she did not have any internal energy, She was still agile. She quickly took a step back, and the teacup brushed past her shoulder and fell to the ground. The teacup shattered, and the boiling hot tea spilled all over the floor. The tea leaves scattered, and the high-quality tea fragrance immediately filled the entire hall. Chu Qingyan's gaze shifted away from the steaming hot tea and turned towards the person sitting at the head of the table, whose chest was heaving with anger. She narrowed her eyes, and a murderous look flashed across her eyes, but she quickly hid it. She didn't know what she had done to offend this imperial concubine Moon that made her attack her again and again. Chu Qingyan, look at what you've done. When Consort Yu saw that Chu Qingyan had dodged her attack, she became even angrier. She pointed at Chu Qingyan in anger. How did Qingyan offend your highness Consort Yu to cause your highness to be so angry? Please enlighten me, your highness. Chu Qingyan bowed slightly as she asked in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. You still have the nerve to ask this consort to enlighten you? Look at Ranner. He was perfectly fine yesterday, but he only went to your courtyard for a bit. When he came back, he fell ill again, and his illness is even worse than before. Tell me, what exactly did you say to him? Consort Yu stood up and walked in front of her, glaring fiercely at her. After hearing this, Chu Qingyan was a bit astonished. She didn't think that her words last night would have such a huge impact on Xiao Ran. He was clearly perfectly fine, so how did he suddenly fall ill? She looked at Consort Yu, whose face was distorted from anger. Although she sympathized with this mother, there was always something hateful about a pitiful person. Her head was still slightly lowered as she replied politely, nothing much. When His Highness the Fourth Prince left, he was perfectly fine. Imperial concubine Yu snorted coldly as her sharp gaze landed on Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan, don't even think of trying to deceive this concubine. This concubine has eaten more salt than you have walked on. If you don't tell me the truth, don't blame this concubine for turning hostile. Chu Qingyan was a bit irritated. It was one thing for Xiao Ran to pester her, but this consort Yu was also interfering. Her patience was already running out. Now that she was being threatened to this extent, she didn't want to continue pretending. She looked up and the warmth in her eyes faded. Bits of starlight gathered in her eyes as she looked coldly at the person in front of her. Your Highness wants to hear the truth? Stop wasting time and tell me the truth. Consort Yu was currently overflowing with anger. She didn't notice the change in Ji Yunshu's body and spoke even more impolitely. Chu Qingyan scoffed inwardly. You were the one who wanted me to say this, so don't blame me later. Last night, His Highness the Fourth Prince played a male phoenix seeking a female phoenix in Qingyan's courtyard. He said that he was playing it for Qingyan and revealed his true feelings. How could Qingyan be worthy of His Highness's kind intentions? Thus, she tactfully declined. Chu Qingyan's straightforward words caused quite a stir in the palace. Consort Yu hadn't expected that Ji Yunshu would disregard her own reputation and so calmly expose the truth. She was so shocked that she forgot to get angry. Nanny Jiang and Yu Tu were also so frightened that their faces turned pale. They hurriedly chased the palace servants out of the inner hall to prevent Chu Qingyan from saying anything that would tarnish the reputation of the imperial family. Chu Qingyan didn't pay attention to their little actions. She looked directly at Consort Yu's astonished gaze and said with a faint smile, Qingyan is His Highness the Fourth Prince's future sister-in-law. How could I accept His Highness's feelings? If word got out that Qingyan was a femme fatale who seduced His Highness the Fourth Prince, that would be light. If word got out that His Highness the Fourth Prince didn't care about etiquette and coveted his own sister-in-law, then wouldn't the image you've created for His Highness the Fourth Prince all these years be destroyed? Slap. Consort Yu raised her hand and slapped Chu Qingyan fiercely. Chu Qingyan hadn't expected Consort Yu to suddenly attack. It was too late to dodge, so she could only lean to the side to minimize the damage. However, the silver ring on her index finger still left a red mark on her delicate face. She covered her burning face and looked coldly at Consort Yu. She gritted her teeth and suppressed the humiliation in her heart. Consort Yu couldn't help but want to retreat when she saw Consort Yu's extremely cold gaze. However, she realized that she shouldn't be afraid of Consort Yu, so she harumphed heavily. Chu Qingyan, You're simply refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. It's your fortune that Ranner has taken a liking to you. Don't tell me you want to spend the rest of your life with Xiao Su, who's in a precarious state. With the current situation, it's hard to say if Xiao Su will be able to leave the capital alive. That's why this consort is advising you out of goodwill. A fine bird will break a tree and perch in it. You should also make plans for your future. Do you want to entrust the rest of your life to this useless person? Chu Qingyan lowered her hand and fearlessly met Consort Yu's gaze. Although she had a brilliant smile on her face, her eyes were completely cold. Haha, precarious state? Useless? I didn't think that in your eyes, my family's Imperial Highness would have this kind of image. Then compared to my family's useless Imperial Highness, who only knows how to hide in the Imperial Palace and order those useless people to deal with the invaders and corrupt officials, isn't my family even more useless? Imperial concubine Moon felt as though her fist had landed on cotton. What's more, her fist had rebounded and landed on her own face. She pointed at Chu Qingyan angrily, so angry that she couldn't even speak properly. How dare you? Chapter 1341. Did I hit the nail on the head and cause your highness to fly into a rage out of humiliation? Chu Qingyan looked coldly at Consort Yu, whose face was contorted, and chuckled as she continued, the truth is always bloody, so it's no wonder that your highness can't accept it. Chu Qingyan, shut your mouth for this consort. What right do you have to point fingers at this consort? Consort Yu was just as Chu Qingyan had said, flying into a rage out of humiliation. Sanctimonious or two-faced people rely entirely on that layer of skin as a fig leaf to conceal their inner darkness, so that they can deceive the world, and pretend to be virtuous and dignified, and enjoy the love and respect of the world. If someone were to tear off that fig leaf, they would be able to see the true ugliness of their human nature. Qingyan doesn't dare. Chu Qingyan shrugged. Although her words were respectful, her tone was very casual, causing one to grit their teeth in anger. Chu Qingyan, are you so fearless because you have Xiao Su as your backer? Let this concubine tell you, in the near future, there will no longer be a battle god or king in the West Loft. Imperial concubine Moon was like a viper as she glared at Chu Qingyan viciously. She looked at Chu Qingyan as if she was looking at a dying person. Chu Qingyan wasn't frightened by Consort Yu's appearance, but she was shocked by Consort Yu's words. When she noticed the red marks on her face, her expression changed slightly and she asked with a dark expression, "What did you say? What exactly are you trying to do? Imprisoning me in the Imperial Palace was also part of your plan, right?" Seeing Ji Yunshu's expression change, Imperial concubine Moon's mood improved greatly. She slowly said, "That's right, you're the weak spot that we used to pin down Xiao Su. This concubine isn't afraid to tell you now. Originally, our original goal was to have Xiao Su take the initiative to dissolve the engagement between the two of you. Unfortunately, he didn't seem willing, so we could only put you under house arrest in the palace to force him to act. However, don't worry, no matter what the outcome is, this consort is magnanimous and will allow you to stay by Ranner's side." When Chu Qingyan heard Consort Yu's words, she was both terrified of their plan and disdainful of Consort Yu's self-righteousness. However, her emotions were still affected by Consort Yu's words. The fact that Consort Yu was able to say these words in front of her without fear proved that she had a strong backing. Consort Yu thought back to the day when the ice cube was summoned to the Imperial Palace and had a bad guess. Could it be that the person standing behind Consort Yu was the Sichuan Emperor? Consort Yu calmed down. That wasn't impossible. The Sichuan Emperor had always wanted to get rid of the ice cube as soon as possible, so how could he miss out on something like this? What? Are you scared? Actually, you don't have to worry. As long as you serve Ranner well, this consort can let bygones be bygones. Consort Yu stroked the hair in front of her chest in a magnanimous manner. Chu Qingyan snapped out of her daze. In her eyes, the alluring Consort Yu was nothing more than an evil man-eating flower. She sneered, "Your Highness Consort Yu, don't be too self-righteous. Our Highness won't fall for your tricks. Moreover, even if this miss dies, I'll die with our Highness." The dignified imperial family actually resorted to such despicable acts to force a good girl into prostitution. How shameful! Consort Yu's expression changed and she glared at the person in front of her. Alright, since you don't know what's good for you, then this consort won't be polite to you. Someone come, send Chu Qingyan to the imperial prison. As soon as she finished speaking, guards swiftly arrived in the hall. Chu Qingyan looked at the menacing guards before looking calmly at Consort Yu. May I ask, Your Highness Consort Yu, what crime did Qingyan commit? Is the crime of infiltrating the military enough? Consort Yu looked at her with a mocking smile. Chu Qingyan bit her lip, unable to refute. Since you have nothing to say, then don't blame this consort for being merciless. Take her away. Consort Yu ordered the guards. Without any explanation, the guards moved to grab Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan took a step back, her entire body emitting an aura that kept people away. She said coldly, I can walk on my own. There's no need to trouble yourself. After saying this, she walked past the guards and headed out of the palace. The guards had been stunned by the bloodthirsty aura she had just released. By the time they came back to their senses, she had already walked a few steps away, so they immediately followed after her. After Chu Qingyan left, Consort Yu restrained her expression and returned to her original calm and elegant self. She slowly spoke into the silent hall. You heard everything? Chu Qingyan is deeply in love with Xiao Su. If Xiao Su isn't eliminated, it's impossible for you to win the beauty back. After she finished speaking, a handsome and thin figure walked out from behind the curtain. It was the recuperating Xiao Ran. At this time, his face was pale, his eyes were lifeless, and his expression was muddle-headed. When his mother's gaze came over, his eyes slowly regained their luster. A touch of hostility slowly appeared on his previously gentle and harmless face. His jaw tightened as if he was restraining something. Before Qingyan came in, his lady mother had him hide behind the curtain, saying that she wanted him to see some things clearly. He originally didn't understand anything, but when he felt Qingyan's trust and intimacy towards his eldest brother and heard her say that she would rather die than stay by his side, his heart was once again pierced by thousands of arrows just like last night. No, it should be more painful than thousands of arrows piercing his heart. In the end, he was already numb to it. It turned out that in Qingyan's eyes, his eldest brother was the clouds in the sky, and he was the mud on the ground. It really made one's heart turn cold. However, this made him understand even more clearly that he, Xiao Ran, had to have Chu Qingyan. Anyone who stood in their way would be eliminated by him. Then what should I do next? The gentle and clear voice was no longer there. It was low and hoarse with a hint of coldness. You've already made your preparations? I have already thought it through. Even if you have to face Xiao Su, you won't waver? Consort Yu asked again with certainty. Xiao Ran was stunned. He remembered those gentle and kind eyes, remembered the sword moves that were dancing in the falling leaves, remembered how he had protected her time and time again. His eyes were filled with struggle. He owed his eldest brother a great debt of gratitude. Was he really ready to stand on the opposite side of him? Qingyan, am I not as good as eldest brother? Not at all. Xiao Ran, you are a flower that grew up in a greenhouse, while he is a tree that is exposed to the wind and sun. It is indeed unfair to say that. Suddenly, the struggle in Xiao Ran's eyes disappeared. He slowly clenched his fists, his veins popping and his fingertips turning white. However, he was completely unaware. He slowly said, I must let Qingyan know that I am not any worse than imperial older brother. Seeing her son firmly say each word, a satisfied smile finally appeared on Consort Yu's face. Good, with your words, Mufei can be at ease. Rana, you've finally grown up. Xiao Ran pursed his lips into a line. His expression was firm and his eyes were as hot as fire. When Consort Yu saw this, she nodded. Her plan to make Ranner completely abandon his brotherly feelings towards Xiao Su had not been in vain. Chu Qingyan, you've truly helped this consort greatly. Chapter 1342. At dawn, Xiao Yao climbed over the wall and entered the King of England's manor. As usual, he was chased all over the yard by Father Chu's chickens, ducks, and geese. If Xiao Su hadn't heard the news and rescued him, he would have had more feathers on his head. "Why are you here?" Xiao Su looked at his second brother who was patting his clothes with all his might and turned to walk into the hall. "Didn't I come to find you for something? If there was nothing, who would want to come to your chicken coop?" Xiao Yao's face was full of disdain. He was originally a carefree king who was famous in the capital. Men, women, old, and young vied for him. He had always been glamorous, but he didn't think that every time he came here, he would end up in such a sorry state. He had to get someone to calculate if he was incompatible with this place. However, when he raised his head after cursing in his heart, his eldest brother was already out of sight. He immediately chased after him. At this time, Huoling was reporting to his master. "Master, official Lin has already asked His Majesty for permission to return to Jiangnan a few days ago. He set off early this morning, and Miss Xioli also went back with him." Xiao Su nodded. "Send some people to escort them safely to Jiangnan." Huoling received the order, but then he was a bit troubled and didn't know how to start. "Is there anything else?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and asked. "It's like this. Yesterday, you had this subordinate send First Master Chu and First Madam Chu back to Lian City, but First Master Chu was very resistant. He said he wouldn't leave until he saw the young princess consort. This made it very difficult for this subordinate to handle." Speak of the devil. As soon as Huoling finished speaking, Father Chu's figure appeared at the entrance of the yard. He was dressed in a blue robe and looked elegant. It was a pity that he was holding a rather unnatural white goose in his hand. He walked over aggressively. Xiao Yao instinctively wanted to hide when he saw the goose, but Father Chu seemed to be coming for him as he walked directly in front of him. "Hey, damn brat, did you scare my little frog? Do you know that it was going to lay eggs this morning? You scared it so much that it shrank back. Do you know that a person can scare a goose to death?" Father Chu's words came out as fast as beans, leaving Xiao Yao, who had never experienced Father Chu's ravaging, dumbfounded. He couldn't help but turn to look at his eldest imperial brother. Where did this clown come from? Huoling held back his laughter as he spoke. "This is my little princess father. Didn't you just meet him a few days ago?" The corner of Xiao Yao's mouth twitched. So the person who was covered in mud and whose head was covered in leaves and sawdust last time was this weak scholar holding a white goose in front of him? But to be able to carry such a fat white goose so easily, he didn't look weak at all. Xiao Su glanced at Huoling. Huoling immediately understood and walked forward. He asked Father Chu with a smile, "The little frog might have been frightened. Let the servants pacify it and it will calm down and lay eggs properly." "White impermanence, when did you become so smart? Then help me carry the little frog to Hollow. Since little Yama isn't here and he has nothing to do, have him smooth the little frog's feathers for me until it lays eggs. I still have something to do with the inverted onion." Father Chu stuffed the big white goose into Huoling's hands as he spoke and left it to others. Huoling helplessly face-bombed. At this time, Xiao Yao curiously leaned over and asked, "Huoling, who is Hollow? Who is little Yama? Why you called white impermanence? Also, who is the inverted onion?" When Huoling heard this, he instantly felt a headache coming on. He stammered, "This subordinate can't explain it in a few words. This subordinate will go smooth the little frog's feathers. Second Highness, please chat with Master. This subordinate will take his leave." Xiao Yao looked at Huoling's back as he left. Why did he feel like he was fleeing? Suddenly, a face enlarged in front of his eyes. Xiao Yao couldn't help but take a step back in fright. When he saw that the person standing in front of him was the first old Master Chu they were talking about, he couldn't help but gulp. To be able to name a white goose little frog, it was quite strange. However, looking at his eldest brother's expression, he seemed to indulge this person. As expected of his princess father, he loved the house and its crow. At this time, Father Chu had already changed his target. He stood in front of his son-in-law and harumphed, "Inverted onion, Father, I'm not leaving. Don't let white impermanence come over again. Father wants to wait here for Kai Kai to come back. It's very dangerous here," Xiao Su said in a low voice. Chu Machen's father took a deep breath. Just when Xiao Yao thought that he was going to lose his temper, he pursed his lips and burst into tears. Son-in-law, do you not want your father anymore? Are you going to chase your father away? Father is so pitiful. Little cabbage, yellow in the fields. Xiao Su had a headache and raised his hand to stop his father-in-law from continuing his plaintive singing. Everything is as you wish. When Kai Kai comes back, you will leave with us. After getting the answer he wanted, Father Chu was like the weather in June. When he said it would rain, and when he said it would stop, it would stop. His face was like the sun in June as he smiled and waved at Xiao Su. Then father will go look for Kong Kong. You go to your business. Father Chu slipped away after saying that. When he passed by Xiao Yao, he harumphed coldly and said, Don't have any ideas about my little frog. Even if it lays an egg, I won't give it to you. Xiao Yao was speechless. He pointed at the skipping figure and said to the people around him, Your princess father is really interesting. Even if he's interesting, it's not yours. The corners of Xiao Yao's eyes twitched. Eldest brother, you're too possessive. However, he had never seen this kind of affection from his imperial father, but now he saw it from Father Chu. Xiao Yao's heart was filled with emotions. Perhaps the Chu family was the only family that could truly bring warmth and affection to eldest brother. Why are you looking for me? Xiao Su didn't bother with pleasantries and asked directly. Xiao Yao also sat down with him, his expression turning serious. I heard that the Fu family has submitted a memorial, saying that they want to expose the Liang family for abusing their official position over the past 20 years, deceiving their superiors and subordinates, and committing heinous crimes. Moreover, the day after tomorrow, the Fu family will launch a complaint against the Liang family. I heard this from the courtesan of the Yihong brothel. She said that it was the Fu family who accidentally revealed it, and she overheard it. When he said this, Xiao Yao sighed. Eldest brother, the fire here hasn't been extinguished yet, but the fire there has started again. I'm really worried for you. I've already heard about the Fu family. You don't have to worry. There won't be any major conflicts at the moment, but... Xiao Su changed the topic, his gaze cold. You should go to less brothels. Imperial father's mood isn't too good recently. Don't get caught by him. Xiao Yao chuckled and leisurely leaned against the back of the chair. His voice was relaxed. I just like the wine there. Don't think of me as such. What I think of you isn't important. What you need to pay attention to is what the court officials think of you. You don't want to be caught by the imperial censor. Xiao Su glanced at him coldly. Xiao Yao shrugged. All right, there are a lot of things going on recently. I'll try to go less. Why are you still here? What else do you want? Hearing this, Xiao Yao's posture couldn't help but tighten. His gaze was hesitant. Imperial brother, I do have something to tell you, but you have to prepare yourself first. Chapter 1343. Xiao Yao's hesitation caused Xiao Su to look at him a few more times. Imperial brother, you have to promise that you will calm down. What is it? Just say it. You are not the kind of person who hesitates. Xiao Yao took a deep breath and prepared himself. Then he looked at him and said, Today, my mother sent someone to tell me that your young princess consort is no longer in Yuran Palace. It seems that she was taken away last night and never returned. No one knows where she was taken to. You promised me that you would calm down. Before Xiao Yao could finish speaking, he jumped a zhang away. Seeing the person who had been fine just now suddenly change, he couldn't help but feel bitter. The person who had been casually sitting on the chair earlier had the morning light seeping in through the window and falling on his body, leaving a faint silhouette on his shoulders and back. At this moment, his entire body was tense, like a bow filled with power, ready to deliver a fatal blow at any time. He was clearly in the bright hall, but his entire body exuded a dark and cold aura, as well as a world-destroying rage. Fortunately, it was only for a moment and was quickly hidden in his cold eyes. You mean that Ian's whereabouts are unknown right now? Even someone like Xiao Yao, who was usually fearless, couldn't help but tremble when he heard this voice that was terrifyingly calm. He rarely saw his imperial brother reveal his emotions. Usually, he was cold and cheerless, as if nothing could make him angry or happy. Now that he saw this angry side, he suddenly had a premonition. If eldest brother really threw away his status and went against the Sichuan imperial family, then imperial father and the others wouldn't be able to bear this thunderous rage. Yes, last night, Xiao Ran came to find Miss Chu, but he didn't stay for long. The next day, Miss Chu stayed in her courtyard for a day. Later, Consort Yu sent people to take her away. After that, there was no more news. Xiao Yao forced himself to be calm and said, "Mother said that her abilities were limited and she couldn't help. You fellows have already helped me a lot. There is no need for you fellows to participate in the following matters. I don't want to implicate you fellows." After saying that, Xiao Su made his way out. When Xiao Yao saw his aggressive look, he immediately had a bad premonition in his heart. He immediately ran in front of him to stop him. "What did you mean just now? Where are you going now?" Xiao Su's eyes calmly met his second brother's gaze. The latter was shocked by the determination and monstrous anger that surged beneath his calm eyes. Before he could study it, Xiao Su had already spoken. "I no longer want to sit and wait for death. I want to enter the palace." "Enter the palace? What's the point of entering work? Are you going to ask Imperial Father for him? What do you think? What if Imperial Father doesn't give it to me?" Xiao Yao asked. Xiao Su lowered his eyebrows to hide the ruthlessness in his eyes. "Then I'll go look for her myself. Even if I have to search the entire palace, I'll find her." When he finished speaking, Xiao Su prepared to walk past him and head straight for the door. Xiao Yao reached out and grabbed his arm. His voice lowered. "Imperial brother, do you know that you're just going to die like this? You've already been blinded by your impulsiveness. Think about it carefully. If you do this, will you really be able to find her? Perhaps not only will you not find her, but you'll also throw yourself in? Won't the gains not make up for the losses? At that time, who will save Miss Chu? Have you thought about the consequences?" As if a cold wind had blown over, the flames in Xiao Su's eyes gradually extinguished with Xiao Yao's words. The powerful pressure on his body dissipated, allowing Xiao Yao's worried heart to finally settle. He let out a sigh of relief. Just now, he had almost thought that he would suffocate under his imperial brother's pressure. Fortunately, his imperial brother woke up. "I'm fine. Let go." Xiao Su had already regained his rationality. His gaze was cold and sharp as he spoke expressionlessly. He released his fingers and took a step back to look at the person in front of him who was still in the midst of the storm. He couldn't bear it, but he still advised, "Imperial brother, at this time, you mustn't let your emotions affect your decisions. With your current strength, you simply can't contend against imperial power. So you have to think twice before you act." He knew that these words were very weak and irresponsible. If Chu Qingyan was taken away, it would be fine if she was safe and sound. But if she was treated inhumanely, then it would be a catastrophe that the eldest brother couldn't bear. This was the root cause of the eldest brother's impulsiveness. People were incomparably terrified of the unknown, especially when it involved the people they cared about. Whether you were the brave god of war or the high and mighty lord, it was difficult to escape. "I know." Xiao Su returned to his seat. At the same time, he had already summoned Turin. "Master, you were looking for this subordinate?" Turin asked respectfully as soon as he entered. Xiao Su told him about the little fellow's disappearance in the imperial palace. Then he ordered, "Send out all the hidden guards to keep a close eye on the people from the Moon Palace sect and the Fu family. Pay attention to the people who are in contact with Consort Yu. It doesn't matter if you rob her openly or secretly. Bring her back to this prince and pry open their mouths." No one would have thought that these words, which sounded like the words of a bandit leader, would come out of the mouth of his righteous and brilliant eldest brother. It was simply too exciting and made one's blood boil. Xiao Yao blinked. It was as if this was the first day that he had met him. He stared at him without blinking, afraid that he would fly away from his eyes and never see him again. However, Xiao Yao didn't expect that this hot-blooded Xiao Su would be like this every time they met in the future. How could a person who had fought and shed blood on the battlefield be a weakling? In the past, he had put away all his hostility because he had left the battlefield of fighting and killing. There was no need to shout and shout like this anymore. The people in the capital also didn't want to see an unruly eagle swaying under their eyes. The person on the dragon throne also didn't want him to shine too brightly. However, because he had put away his claws, those people all thought that he had become a docile little lamb after staying in his fief for a few years. It was simply too laughable. Go and call in the Hualing and water spirit. This prince still has things to tell them, Xiao Su said indifferently. Then he sent Turin away. Turin knew that time was tight and didn't dare delay any longer. After nodding, he strode out of the door. Xiao Yao felt that his mission was complete. He originally wanted to say a few words to his brother to comfort him, but seeing that he didn't want to talk too much with others, he tactfully rubbed his nose. He thought that if he stayed any longer, he was afraid that others would find out and make his father suspect that he and his brother were in cahoots. Thus, after bidding farewell to him, he immediately left with Turin. Xiao Su looked at the back of his unruly brother as he left and sighed softly. In the imperial family, only those who understood and pretended to be muddle-headed could live long. He hoped that his second brother could still peacefully live his muddle-headed days. Chapter 1344. Turin walked very fast. Xiao Yao, who wanted to talk to him, quickened his pace to catch up with him. Turin, who was instructed by his master, walked for a while before he realized that someone was following him. He thought that Prince Xiao Yao probably had something to say, so he stopped and turned around to wait for Xiao Yao for a while. Xiao Yao waved his fan and caught up with him. There was no sweat on his face, but he pretended to be out of breath. You are indeed the best assassin under my eldest brother. You walk without a sound, and your speed is so fast that it's like flying. This prince is sweating profusely. I really admire you. Turin looked at his relaxed steps and refreshed appearance. He couldn't help but twitch his eyes. The second prince's ability to lie through his teeth was getting better and better. I wonder why your highness is looking for me? Xiao Yao secretly shook his head in his heart. Eldest imperial brother had many capable people under his command, but each of them had inherited his temper. If there was something to say, they would say it without any hesitation. More importantly, they were not polite at all. It was a waste of the sweat he had just squeezed out. But knowing that he had something important to do, Xiao Yao didn't dare to delay him. So he walked in front of him and looked around. Turin saw him like this and said lightly, Your Highness can rest assured. There are secret guards here. No one will eavesdrop. These words made Xiao Yao feel relieved. He didn't hide anything and said directly, My identity is special. I can't always be in front of your master. He is so anxious because of your princess being detained that he is going crazy. I hope that you, who have been by his side for many years, can watch him carefully and don't let him do anything stupid. Otherwise, the whole King of England's mansion, the fierce cavalry under his protection, and his princesses old and young, I'm afraid that he won't be able to protect them. Xiao Yao said. He had always been casual and mischievous, but at this time, he showed deep worry and sorrow. I really don't want anything to happen to him. You should persuade him to think twice before acting. Remember to be impulsive. Turin knew that the prince in front of him really cared about his master, and his cold eyes softened a little. Your Highness, I know that you are worried about my master, but there is one thing that I must clarify with you. Please speak. Xiao Yao looked at him seriously. Turin smiled, revealing a bloodthirsty look on his usually stern face. Your Highness, you're wrong. If my master really does something impulsive, the one who should be afraid is the one in the high position. Xiao Yao was surprised. What do you mean? Turin sneered. You may not know, but our little princess has a troop of elite soldiers. If my master really wants to abandon the thousands of people in Sichuan, as long as he summons them, the imperial palace will be trampled into powder even if it is impregnable. These words shocked Xiao Yao. If these words were said by someone else, he wouldn't believe it. But when he saw Turin's confident and proud expression, he couldn't help but think of the rumors he heard when he was fighting against Nansong. Could it be that what I heard before, that there is a herd of wild beasts helping Imperial Brother on the battlefield, is true? that herd of wild beasts is led by your princess?" Seeing the second prince so shocked, Turin stopped smiling. As long as little troublemaker and glutinous rice ball set out, trampling the imperial palace would only be a matter of minutes. But the reason why his master didn't use them was that he didn't want to destroy the Sichuan's thousands of years of foundation. If the most important place of the Sichuan was destroyed because of a momentary hatred, then not only would the Sichuan fall into chaos, but the various countries that coveted the Sichuan for a long time would also send troops to take a share of the profits. The Sichuan would be finished. Therefore, his master didn't want to push the Sichuan into eternal damnation because of personal hatred. This way, even if they were no longer under the control of the Sichuan emperor, when the troops of other countries came, the people wouldn't have a place to live. After all, when the nest was overturned, no egg would be left intact. Turin didn't answer Xiao Yao's words. Some words didn't need to be said clearly. The second prince was a smart person, he would understand. Therefore, Turin bowed to him and quickly left. He still had things to do, so he couldn't waste time here. Xiao Yao looked at Turin's back as he left. The hand that was holding the fan slowly lowered. He smiled bitterly. At this time, his throat was dry. He sighed in his heart. "Imperial Father, oh Imperial Father, you should be glad that you have a son who cares about the country. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting on the dragon throne without any worries. Therefore, don't be too ruthless. If the eagle really rushes out of the cage and spreads its wings, I'm afraid your country will be finished." Xiao Yao turned around to look at the courtyard, shook his head, and slowly walked away with light steps. "Xiao Ho, can I tell you a secret? My name isn't Pang Zhijing. I'm not the original Southern Blue Princess. I came from a distant era. I never understood why the heavens let me appear here, but now I know. The familiar courtyard, the familiar furnishings, and a familiar figure standing under a tree. She was surrounded by smoke, as if she was standing in the 9 heavens. Her appearance was still so demure and beautiful, and her mischievous expression was just as before. He saw her slowly walking towards him. She didn't jump and jump like before, and her smile was more beautiful than a flower. "Xiao Ho, I traveled through 1,000 years, and after the reincarnation of time, I came here only for you. Therefore, I'm different from those who hurt you. You have to believe that in this world, there are still people who care about you." "I know, I always knew, so you can't leave me." He used all his strength to reach for her hand, but the moment he raised his hand, the scene in front of him disappeared as if his finger touched the surface of water. "No." Xiao Ho woke up from his dream, sweating profusely. The wounds on his body seemed to have been torn open, and there was a dull pain. When he saw the scene around him, he held his forehead and smiled very softly. Bitterness overflowed, and the pain in his heart was indescribable. Not far away, Wang Pe saw this scene and wanted to rush over to take care of him, but she was stopped by Wang Pe. Wang Pe shook his head at her. "Some wounds come from the heart. You have to let him sleep alone, otherwise sooner or later he will get sick. At this time, you don't have to add to the trouble." Wang Pe knew that her husband was right, but her heart was still tightly clenched. Today, His Highness dragged his injuries over, and only said that he wanted to sit under the grape tree and didn't need to pay attention to him. Then he sat there for half a day. How could she not be worried with such a dazed appearance? At this time, Lin Jiangdong, who wasn't stopped by Wang Pe in time, quickly walked to his lord and said in an urgent tone, "Lord, something happened in the King of England's residence." These days, their thoughts were all on the safety of their lord, and they didn't have the leisure to care about what happened outside. Today, when he left the residence, Lord also let him out to walk around. Only then did he know that something happened to the King of England. Chapter 1345. Xiao Ho's expression was tired. Originally, he was not in the mood to care about what was going on outside. However, seeing his most trusted aide, who had always been calm, panicking at this moment, even if the sky fell down, he would still be able to hold it up. This made Xiao Ho, who was absent-minded, ask, "What happened?" In fact, he had never believed that anything would happen to Xiao Su. After so many years of fighting with him, he had suffered many losses at his hands. He did not eat his flesh and blood. Sometimes he would be skinned by him. Therefore, Xiao Ho's tone was very casual. I heard that after his young princess was invited into the palace a few days ago, she has never come out. The King of England's residence has been completely surrounded. The entire city is under martial law. It seems that one is under house arrest in the palace, and the other is under house arrest in the prince's residence. Lin Jiangdong saw that the lord became spirited as he spoke, so he could not help but say more. The situation has become very strange. Although their princess has been brought into the palace, very few people know about it. If we did not have spies inside, I am afraid that we would not have been able to find out the news. Recently, many people have gone out of the palace to do things for His Majesty. The King of England also seems to be moving, but this one really cannot see what they are doing. However, it is clear that His Majesty seems to want to move against the King of England. Xiao Ho's indifferent expression turned serious and focused. He was even a little surprised when he heard the last part. However, when Lin Jiangdong finished speaking, his expression returned to its former unfathomable expression. He smiled lightly and said with ridicule, "Imperial Father is planning to get rid of the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness. But we haven't even implemented the plan yet. Why is His Majesty moving ahead of time?" They had originally set up a trap. They used the assassination of the Lord to arouse the suspicion of the Emperor. Then, they pushed the father and son to fight among themselves. However, because of the appearance of the Princess of Nansong, their plan was disrupted. Their lord was unable to recover from the setback and lost his desire for revenge. However, because of Wang Yu's arrival, they understood the truth of that year. Although their lord did not show it, he could feel that the lord was more or less glad that they did not start the plan. Otherwise, they would have gotten the wrong revenge. However, they did not push them, but they began to rebel. It was really too surprising. Imperial Father probably can't wait anymore. He couldn't wait to get rid of the prince who had a higher reputation among the people than himself, who had made more contributions than him, and whom he didn't truly want to hand over the country to. Xiao Ho's calm narration caused Lin Jiangdong to fall silent. Although he had guessed this in his heart, when he heard the Lord's affirmation, his heart could not help but tremble. The Emperor was too ruthless to do this. In the past, Imperial Father wanted to move against him, but he could not find fault with him. Moreover, the country did not lack such a capable general, so he could only be an eyesore. Now, the eldest brother has handed over the command token of the three armies. He is not someone who likes to form cliques for personal gain. In the capital, other than the personal guards he brought with him, there are not many people. Now that he has a weakness, Imperial Father can easily pinch it. If we don't move now, when will we? Even if the eldest brother himself requests to return to his fief, Imperial Father is not willing to raise a tiger and cause trouble. When Xiao Ho spoke, he smiled faintly. His expression was warm, but his eyes were cold. However, Lin Jiangdong, who was at the side, saw that the Lord, who had been silent for the past few days, had said so much. He did not seem to have seen through life and death. He was somewhat happy and could not help but want him to say more. As the ruler, detaining a woman, how can it be justified? This method of detaining someone's family is indeed dishonorable, but think of the things he did to the Luo family in the past. Which of those things were the actions of a gentleman? When Xiao Ho said this, there was a chill. Lin Jiangdong paused. Then, his expression became cold. Indeed, as an emperor, he was ruthless and merciless. They had all seen it. However, detaining a woman as a hostage does not seem like something he would do. Unless Chu Qingyan had some weakness that he could use against her that made him fearless. However, he did not make a big deal out of it. He only used it to threaten the eldest brother. I fear that it is related to another person. Are you talking about Xiao Ran? Lin Jiangdong asked hesitantly. Xiao Ho did not comment. A while ago, he had received news that Xiao Ran was seriously ill. He had people in the imperial hospital and knew the cause of his illness very well. In addition, he knew a bit about the dispute between Consort Yu and Xiao Ran. In addition, with the recent events, he could more or less deduce something. Perhaps Imperial Father wants to take Chu Qingyan away from the eldest brother and put her by Xiao Ran's side. Xiao Ho slowly said this sentence that even he felt was absurd. However, to that person he was not ashamed at all. Anything that could make the eldest brother restless, he would feel happy and would never get tired of it. Chu Qingyan is a strange woman. If His Majesty found out about her ability and put her by Xiao Ran's side, then he is adding tiger wings to Xiao Ran. If it is just because Xiao Ran likes her, then His Majesty is really biased. Ever since he knew that the Sichuan Emperor was the mastermind behind the Luo family's destruction, Lin Jiangdong did not have a trace of good feelings for this ruthless emperor. When he ridiculed him, he was not polite. No, I already knew about his temperament. For so many years, everything he did was to pave the way for Xiao Ran. If he really wanted to be calculative, how many times would the princes be disappointed? Lin Jiangdong deeply agreed. Otherwise, Lord would not have been so severely injured. The Sichuan emperor only sent a eunuch to express his concern. Although he rewarded him with many precious herbs, there was no real meaning behind it. Thus, Lord no longer had any feelings for him. Lord, there is one more thing that I have not reported. It is said that in 3 days, which is the day after tomorrow, the Fu family will deal with the Liang family in court and convict the Liang family. I think it might be His Majesty's idea. However, our spies have sent news that the rumors are just a smokescreen. The real action will be tomorrow. I think it is to make them lower their guard so that we can catch them off guard tomorrow. Xiao Ho did not have to think much to guess their motive. The sun had set and the sky had darkened. The dense grape leaves in front of him were rustling. His expression was somewhat dull. Then are we just going to watch from the sidelines? Lin Jiangdong asked cautiously. Xiao Ho understood what he meant. Because the truth had been revealed, the plan that had been laid down for so many years was useless. Everyone did not make a move. After all, the target of revenge had changed and they could only start all over again. However, because he was seriously injured, his teacher did not dare to disturb him. He had not asked him to discuss what to do next. If it were not for such a major incident, his teacher would not have brought it up. He wronged the Luo family and caused Mother's family to be destroyed. How can this prince allow these people to be free and unfettered while the deceased suffer? Xiao Ho slowly curved his lips. His smile did not reach his eyes. So, how can we let them do as they wish? Chapter 1346. So, Lord, you're planning to help the King of England? After hearing his lord's words, Lin Jiangdong didn't feel surprised at all. Xiao Ho's smile deepened. Go down and find out the situation, so that we can deal with it. Looking at the lord's sinister smile, Lin Jiangdong felt that the lord of the past had returned, but it seemed that something was missing and something else was added. Lin Jiangdong looked up at the grape trellis in the courtyard, and he had an answer in his heart. Perhaps it was for the sake of the princess who had passed away. This one will take his leave. After Lin Jiangdong retreated, Xiao Ho put away his expression and looked at the vines that covered the trellis in front of him. The green leaves were lush, and it seemed that in 1 or 2 months, the fruit would be ready. He had promised that little rascal, when the fruit ripened, he would bring her here. Thinking of that time, she stood under the trellis, drooling at the large leaves, and her eyes were shining with greed. His eyes were as deep as a pool of water, hiding endless pain. He suddenly regretted it. For Xiao Ho, he thought that there would be no accidents in his life. For example, everything would be carried out according to his plan. For example, he would finally get his revenge and get the position that others yearned for. For example, he would live a peaceful life like this. However, he found that there was an accident in his life, and this accident was too unexpected. She came in a hurry, but left quietly. His heart felt empty all of a sudden. If he knew that the Prime Minister's son was sent by Nan Song, if he didn't think that he was infallible and underestimated the enemy, would there be no fatal blow on the cliff? If he put more effort into her, would there be no separation? If he realized his feelings earlier and cared for her a little more, would there be no result? If time could turn back and she said it again, he would promise her and let go of the hatred. However, There was no medicine for regret in this world. He closed his eyes and smiled bitterly. The people that Xiao Su sent out quickly received the news. Turin, fire spirit, water spirit, and the others stood in a row, their faces incomparably solemn. They all looked at their master in front of them, afraid that what they were going to say next would make him go crazy. What are you all staring at this prince for? What did you find out? This prince can take it. Xiao Su glanced at the people under his eyes and said coldly. This matter was found out by Tu Ling. He gritted his teeth and said, Master, your method is very effective. This subordinate has kidnapped a few people and used some tricks. As expected, I managed to get information from their mouths. He paused and instantly received a cold air from his master. He immediately said, Young Wang Fei is not in the imperial palace right now. She is locked up in the imperial prison. The people in the palace gave orders to the people inside so no one knows that young Wang Fei is inside. After that, everyone present lowered their heads and didn't dare to raise their heads because they knew their master well. They were afraid that their master would fly into a rage. As expected, the temperature in the room instantly dropped to the cold winter of the 12th lunar month. A voice so cold that it seemed to be covered in ice shards came from above. Good, very good. Following these words, there was a hong sound. The table made from a 100-year-old tree cracked and shattered on the ground. No one dared to make a sound. Xiao Su took back his hand and clenched his fists. Under the mask, his face was terrifyingly dark. If she was placed in the imperial palace, at least they would not lack her food and clothing. But what kind of place was the prison? Not to mention how dirty and messy it was. The people locked up were either evil people or people who committed heinous crimes. Even if they were not about to be executed, they were not far from death. In that kind of place, how good could the environment be? How could he bear for his little fellow to suffer in there? That was the person he loved the most. Turin, water spirit, fire spirit, does this prince look like he is easy to bully? This sudden question caused the three valiant fierce mounts to be dumbfounded. The valiant fierce cavalry that their master raised could fight 100 enemies. Each one of them killed without spilling blood. Their master led 30,000 soldiers to kill 100,000 enemies like they were harvesting grass. Their master did not show any mercy when dealing with corrupt officials in the north. Once they were investigated, their families would be exterminated and their blood would flow like a river. Could their master be someone easy to bully? The three of them narrowed their eyes. How was that possible? It seems like in these 5 years, they think that this prince has lost his courage. They think that this prince is a tiger that has been imprisoned, with all of its teeth pulled out. That pair of black eyes were blood red, bloodthirsty and crazed. This was the first time they heard their master laugh so creepily. The three of them immediately understood that their master was going to fight back. It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood, their eyes shining brightly. Master, please give your orders. We will be on standby. The three of them were valiant and high-spirited. It was as if they were not going to do something against the heavens, but to lead troops into battle. But this time, it was almost the same as fighting a war. The only difference was that the opponents were their own people. Water spirit, go and figure out the structure of the prison. Turin, prepare to raid the prison tomorrow night. Hualing, arrange for the family to be moved. Yes. These were people that had been by his side for 10 to 20 years. He did not need to say anything, they all knew how to carry it out. Little fellow, just hold on for one more day. Big Ice Cube will come and save you. At this time, the person that was being thought of was squatting in the prison, rubbing her arms. This consort you was too ruthless. Just because she said a few words, she was sent to this place where birds did not lay eggs. It was gloomy all around. There were rats and cockroaches crawling everywhere. It was very disgusting. Moreover, it was worthy of being the lowest level prison. Not only was it dark, it was also very cold. At this time, her internal strength was suppressed and she could not even circulate her chi to warm up. But this was not the most annoying thing. The palace servant standing not far away was the most annoying thing. Miss Chu, have you thought it through? As long as you are willing to admit your mistake to consort Yu and agree to her request, you can immediately leave this place. How about it? This person was Consort Yu's trusted aide. Right now, she was trying her best to persuade her to surrender. She had not stopped for 2 days. As expected of someone from the palace, her temper was really good. Moreover, she kept telling her about the benefits of being by Xiao Ran's side. It was simply too annoying. It seemed like Consort Yu wanted her to suffer here. She wanted to know how powerful Consort Yu was. She wanted to kill her spirit, punish her, and then make her beg for mercy. Did she really think that she was one of those delicate young misses? She, Chu Qingyan, had suffered all kinds of hardships. This could not compare to the hardships she suffered when she was thrown into the Fuli mountain range by Xiao Lai. She stretched lazily and then grabbed the straw to lie down. She leisurely said, "Did eunuch say you're tired? If you're tired, then rest. Your throat is not good to begin with. Don't tire yourself out. This prison is a little dark, but you can still see the scenery. If eunuch is tired, you can walk around and look at those torture devices. The design is quite interesting, but it's a little ugly." The eunuch was interrupted in the middle of speaking. He was stunned. Then, he looked at the person who really treated this as a sightseeing tour. The corner of his mouth twitched again. This was the 38th time today that the corner of his mouth twitched. Chapter 1347. Chu Qingyan's lips curled up as she heard the sound of footsteps being stepped on. That palace servant had finally been angered by her and moved on to other places to vent her frustrations. She lay on the grass and looked at the dark dungeon. The light in her eyes also dimmed. She had heard from Big Ice Cube that the heavenly prison only held important criminals. The lower the level, the more serious the crime and the stricter the security. The lower the level, the lower the possibility of getting out. She recalled the number of steps she had walked down that day. This was probably the lowest level. She thought that to be able to treat her as an equal to a serious criminal, it seemed that her status in the imperial concubine's eyes was still very high. However, she also knew that if it wasn't for Big Ice Cube, she wouldn't be able to enjoy such treatment. However, the more they were afraid and the more careful they were, it proved that this time, they wouldn't go easy on Big Ice Cube. Many of the problems that had perplexed her slowly dissipated after she was imprisoned. It was very quiet here and it allowed her to sort out the current situation. She had now become Big Ice Cube's weak spot that he didn't dare to act rashly. The imperial concubine and Big Ice Cube were probably relying on this point to set up a trap while manipulating Big Ice Cube. She thought of what she had said before. She wanted to be an eagle that fought side by side with him. Now it had become a joke. Not only was she unable to help, she even dragged him down and made him hung up and beaten. How could she take this lying down? She must get out. A dark light flashed across her bright eyes. At this moment, it was time to eat. A soldier walked over with a food box and knocked on the metal door to signal her. Then he squatted outside and opened it for her. It had to be said that although she was in this dungeon and the living conditions were a little bad, the food she ate wasn't bad. The rotten buns and cold water she had imagined didn't appear at all. On the contrary, she was provided with good food and drink. But thinking about it, if they didn't raise her to be fair and plump, how could she threaten her Big Ice Cube when the time came? Thinking of this, she turned around and didn't want to bother with that soldier. Although the food was good, there was no guarantee that it wasn't spiked. She was very cautious. She only touched a little of the food that was sent to her. She didn't dare to eat too much. Although she had to take care of her appetite, she also had to take care of her little life. However, the soldier lingered outside the cell for a long time and still didn't leave. Chu Qingyan's ears twitched and she sat up again to look at the man. That lowered head suddenly lifted up, and her watery eyes quietly winked at her. Who else could it be but Water Spirit? Chu Qingyan's expression changed slightly, but it was only for a moment before she regained her composure. She patted the grass off her body and walked towards the iron gate. She asked casually, "Little brother, what good stuff have you prepared today? Do you have sweet and sour pork?" Although it was heavily guarded, the palace people guarding outside were still very attentive to her. Knowing that she liked this, They served her this dish every meal. Because in the past 2 days, everyone had gotten used to Chu Qingyan's habits and did not take her actions seriously. Shui Ling, with her back facing the people behind her, smiled and nodded. Can't speak? Chu Qingyan immediately understood. She walked in front of her and squatted down across the iron cell. She reached out and flipped through the food, showing a picky look. These again, I'm tired of looking at them. Don't you know that I'm your master's guest? You're using these to fool me. Be careful that I don't complain to your master. The guards around couldn't help but twitch their mouths. This Chu Bawang was up to mischief again. Water Spirit pursed her lips and smiled silently. It seemed that the young princess consort didn't suffer any grievances here. She could go back and explain to her master. Alright, leave it. I'll eat it when I want to. Don't be an eyesore here. Chu Qingyan retracted her hand and clenched the slip of paper that Water Spirit handed to her. She shook her hand at her and then leisurely returned to the pile of grass. Water Spirit lowered her head and retreated. Seeing that no one had noticed the small interaction between the two, Chu Qingyan sighed in relief and lay down with her back to the cell door. Anyway, during this period of time, she was either sleeping or teasing the palace servants and prison guards. She was angry and amused, so everyone was used to her sleeping without saying a word. She opened the slip of paper and it said, "Tomorrow night at 1 a.m. She already understood the simple 4 words. She bent her eyes and crushed the slip of paper. Then she got up again and brought the food over, eating it little by little. Since she was going to run, she had to eat more to have strength. Moreover, she had to sleep well to recover her energy. So when the palace servant came back from his sulk, he saw a figure sleeping with her back to him. His mouth twitched. What time is it now? Reporting to eunuch, it's 1 p.m. It's 1 p.m. The sun hadn't set yet. He hadn't finished his lobbying work for today. But he didn't dare to wake her up. This was the person in His Highness the Fourth Prince's heart. His Highness the Fourth Prince had said that he couldn't let her suffer any grievances. It seemed that he could only bear this grievance himself. Everyone saw the eunuch's mouth twitch for the 40th time today. It was 2 more times than yesterday. Although this dungeon was very boring and dark, every time they saw Miss Chu make the eunuch so angry that he scratched the wall, it was also a joy in the boredom. Inside the imperial study, in front of the Sichuan emperor stood the right prime minister, Fu Jianrong, as well as several important ministers of the Fourth Prince's faction. The Minister of Rights, Jing Jin, the Minister of Appointments, Shui Danqing, and the Minister of War, Meng Xian. For so many years, the left prime minister relied on his high position and power to deceive his superiors and subordinates. He used his position to rope in many young ministers and placed his own people in various important positions. He wantonly amassed wealth, causing many ambitious people to have no chance of entering the imperial court. It's simply a loss to the country. Jing Jin said bitterly. Meng Xian wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of his eyes and said with grief and indignation, "That's right, Your Majesty must be clear about everything. Find out whether the left prime minister did something in the battle 15 years ago, causing tens of thousands of our men to be unable to return." After they finished speaking, the Sichuan emperor also became furious. "Tomorrow, tell me everything you know. I will give the civil and military officials an explanation, and I will also give the people an explanation." "Your Majesty is wise." Everyone knelt down and cheered 3 times. The right prime minister chuckled at the side. This was to boost the morale before the battle. Everyone present was shrewd, and they were all promoted by him. Tomorrow, they would ruthlessly drag the Liang family down from the clouds. Even if they didn't die, they would at least lose a layer of skin. "Okay, you can all go and prepare." The Sichuan emperor waved his hand, and everyone left. When only the Sichuan emperor and eunuch Xiao were left in the study, the Sichuan emperor revealed a faint smile. "Xiao Ji, I have waited for this day for more than 20 years. Finally, I can uproot the Liang family. This thorn in my heart is finally going to be gone." Eunuch Xiao bowed and hurriedly said, "Congratulations, Your Majesty. Tomorrow I will also get rid of the King of England." Eunuch Xiao was just about to straighten his back, but he instantly froze there. Chapter 1348. When Xiao Su received the news that his little fellow was safe and sound in the prison, he couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Water Spirit saw that her master's expression had eased quite a bit and also let out a sigh of relief. But when she thought of the matter she had to report, she was a bit uncertain. She raised her head to look at her master before quickly lowering her head again. She stammered, "Master, there is something else that might make you angry, but you have to control yourself." The study had been very relaxed just now, but when Water Spirit finished speaking, Hualing and the others couldn't help but hold their breaths. "There wouldn't be any trouble, right?" Xiao Su said indifferently, "Speak." Water Spirit immediately said quickly, "Master, the young princess consort's internal energy has been suppressed and is now like a normal person. Also, this subordinate found that her pulse is beating a bit strangely. As for the specific situation, Ethereal will have to take her pulse to know." When she had given the letter to the young princess consort today, her fingers had brushed her wrist and she had discovered these 2 points. When everyone heard this, they didn't dare to look at the table that had fallen apart again after being replaced. Although their master hadn't been angry on the surface recently, this was even scarier than not being angry at all. Xiao Su took back his hand. His expression didn't change, but the light in his eyes became even colder. "Ethereal, you will also go tomorrow night." Ethereal immediately stood up. "This subordinate obeys." Xiao Su looked at everyone. "Has everyone gathered?" Turin nodded. "All the members of the fierce cavalry have arrived. Some are waiting outside the city and some have already entered the city to wait for orders. Without master's orders, they don't dare act rashly." Hualing also added, "Afternoon tomorrow, Master Chu and Madam Chu will be disguised as farmers delivering vegetables. The carriage has already been prepared and will immediately send them out of the city when they see them." Water Spirit replied, "This subordinate has also prepared everything. We will keep a close eye on the city. If there is anything strange, we will send a message to everyone." Wood Spirit and Ethereal also nodded. They were in charge of materials and herbs. As long as they were organized properly, they could be used when necessary. But, other than Turin, everyone else is dismissed. Act according to the plan. If there is anything strange, act ahead of time. Xiao Su's jaw clenched as he gave the order solemnly. Yes, this subordinate obeys. Soon, only Xiao Su and Turin were left in the room. Ben Wang's going with you tomorrow night. The Earth Spirit widened his eyes. Master, didn't you say that you would be in charge of the palace? Xiao Su ordered coldly and sternly, there's no need to say more. Take your men to the armory and pick out weapons that you can use. Those are the weapons that have been rewarded by the higher-ups over the years. Tu Ling still wanted to say something, but he could only lower his head and accept the order under his master's cold gaze. It turned out that his master had asked him to stay behind because of this. This was too risky. If he was found out, he would really be accused of trying to rebel. But their master was their sky and their faith. No matter what he said, they would not doubt or oppose him. After the Earth Spirit left, Xiao Su turned around and picked up the long sword that was hanging on the wall. The pitch-black scabbard was engraved with complicated patterns that gave off an awe-inspiring glow. The black sword hilt was engraved with the same patterns. When he held it in his hand, he could feel that it was grinding against his rough skin. He used this sword to fight against foreign enemies or to deal with traitors. He never thought that he would use it on his own people one day. With a bit of strength, he pulled out the sword that weighed over 10 jin. A silver light flashed across his eyes, cold and emotionless. Then this time he would not fight for the ruler or the people. He would fight for himself. Water Spirit, Hualing, and the others met in the courtyard to talk about their mission and the details of their plan. The people who could follow Xiao Su were not people to be trifled with. They were all experienced people. Otherwise, they would not be able to command their own fierce cavalry. They were different from other people's shadow guards. They weren't marionettes that obeyed orders. They had their own independent analysis, decision-making, and leadership skills, so Xiao Su only gave them tasks, and they had to figure out how to complete them. So any one of these people would be able to reach the same level as those officials who had been in the court for decades. They might even be smarter than them and know how to judge the situation better. Just as these people finished their analysis and were preparing to split up, the fierce cavalry that was arranged to take care of Little Hai and the others outside the city hurried over. Sir Cavalry Masters, the little princess's pets went missing this morning. This subordinate has already sent people to search for them, but so far, there is no news. This news stunned everyone on the spot. Ethereal had the most contact with them, so he was shocked. Were they taken away by someone or did they leave on their own? This subordinate has looked around and there are only their footprints. There are no other suspicious people around, so it can be determined that they left on their own. Knowing that they did not fall into the hands of evil people, Hualing was a bit relieved. All right, Master is already in a terrible fix. Don't tell Master about this for now to avoid him being annoyed. Send people to search first and report to me immediately if there is any news. This episode made the others frown. They hoped that these pets were lucky and would not be targeted by evil people. Don't think too much. They are all overlords and have been trained by the little princess for a long time. The ones who should be worried are not them, but the people they target. Ethereal spoke up at the right time. This made everyone relax. What he said was right. It was fine if they did not bully others, there was nothing to worry about. The most important thing right now was to deal with the matter in front of them. Water Spirit spoke up, let's go do our own things. If there is anything we will contact each other. After parting today, they did not know if they could safely meet again. They cupped their hands at each other and turned to leave. They, the fierce cavalry, treated every mission as their last. They never thought that they would live again. Only by using all their strength and not leaving any leeway could they survive. The next morning, someone from the palace came to invite Xiao Su into the palace to attend court. Didn't you say that court was cancelled today? Why are you suddenly going to court? Turin looked at his silent master in confusion. Turin, I'm afraid that our plan will have to be brought forward. Xiao Su looked at the first ray of light in the sky, but his eyes were as dim as before dawn. Turin pursed his lips. He also smelled that something was wrong. Then, Master, do you still want to go to court? Turin asked worriedly. Even if there is a mountain of knives in front of me, Ben Wang will still charge in. He wanted to see what other tricks that person had. He lowered his eyes and said unhurriedly, if Ben Wang has not returned by 10 o'clock in the morning, you will carry out the plan. But the Earth Spirit's persuasion was cut off halfway by someone else. Turin. This subordinate is here. Xiao Su turned and looked at him with a solemn expression. I will leave Ian to you. Please bring her back to Ben Wang safe and sound. Turin pursed his lips and said firmly, yes. Xiao Su patted his shoulder and strode out of the door. Turin looked at the back of the figure that left alone. His eyes were hot. Then, he casually wiped his sleeve and immediately left to pass down the order that the plan was about to change. Chapter 1349. Yahweh, His Majesty has already ordered all the civil and military officials to attend court. Lin Jiangdong stood next to Xiao Ho, his head lowered as he spoke. In the last few days, Yahweh had not rested at all. He spent his days staring at the exquisite chain in a daze. No matter how others tried to persuade him, they could only watch him continue like this day after day. This king suddenly wants to join in on the fun. Xiao Ho stood up. Although his face was still pale and his body was weak, his aura was not weak at all. Yahweh, you absolutely cannot do this. Your body. Before Lin Jiangdong could finish speaking, Yahweh's gentle gaze made him unable to continue. The rest of his words were stuck in his throat. Go and get ready. With these words, the coffin was closed. Lin Jiangdong watched as that figure gradually disappeared into the distance. Yahweh had become more and more willful in his actions, doing as he pleased and not caring about his own body at all. He was really worried that one day, after he had taken his revenge, his body would collapse. With a heavy sigh, Lin Jiangdong turned and left. Today's court was extremely lively. Originally, because the country was peaceful and the people were at peace, there was nothing important to deal with. Thus, His Majesty had suspended court for 3 days and given all the civil and military officials a holiday. However, they did not expect that before 3 days had passed, His Majesty would send people to find them in a hurry. None of them were easy to deal with. They guessed that something might have happened. At this time, they were whispering with their close ministers. In contrast, the factions of the left minister and the right minister were the calmest. But even though they were not glaring at each other like in the past, the two factions still disliked each other. And those with sharp eyes could see that the undercurrent between them was even more intense than before. The right minister had an enigmatic smile on his face while the left minister had a faint smile on his face. The leaders of these two factions both exuded an unfathomable aura today. Thus, the other officials gradually quieted down and secretly sized them up. They guessed that today's morning court was probably caused by them. But what shocked them even more was that His Royal Highness's aura was even colder than before. Even on this hot summer day, no one dared to approach him. Even the seriously injured prince, he had appeared in court. This made the enigmatic atmosphere even more confusing. Many people began to whisper to their own people that no matter what happened today, it was better to be wise and play it safe. Just as everyone was whispering to each other, Xian Emperor's figure appeared in the main hall. He quickly sat down on the dragon throne. Even from a distance, the officials could feel the majesty of the emperor's body. And they all saluted in fear. "My beloved officials, please rise." Sichuan Emperor raised his hand with a cold face and then said lightly to the people in the hall, "This morning, I received several memorials to impeach several of my important officials. I read them and was very angry. I can't believe that the officials I value would do such a thing. Thus, I gathered everyone here to verify." When Sichuan Emperor said this, his eyes seemed to inadvertently sweep past Xiao Su, who was standing ramrod straight. Then they fell on the left minister and finally fell on the right minister and several people behind him. "Right minister, Minister Jing, please explain in front of all the officials what was written in your memorials." This matter was indeed related to the right minister. It seemed that the right minister's faction was impeaching the left minister and others. After all, both sides were sworn enemies. Jing Jin, the Minister of Rights, was the first to stand up. "Your Majesty, I would like to impeach Minister Left Minister." He took advantage of his position to interfere with the Ministry of Revenue's purchase of grain. He forced the Ministry of Revenue to buy the grain he recommended at a high price, which made the National Treasury spend a large amount of money. Everyone present instantly fell silent, not daring to make a sound. Everyone knew that the Minister of Revenue, Tang Jini, was on the left minister's side. Jing Jin wanted to use the Ministry of Revenue to drag the left minister down. The Minister of War also stood up. "I would also like to impeach Minister Left Minister." Minister Left Minister interfered with my selection of officials. The Ministry of Personnel also stood out to impeach. Not long after, more than a dozen ministers from the right Prime Minister's faction stood out in the hall. The people they were accusing were not only the left Prime Minister, but also the ministers from the left Prime Minister's faction. Most of them had solid evidence, ranging from embezzlement to allowing their disciples to run rampant on the streets. All the crimes could be written into 108 crimes. No one dared to raise their heads to look at His Majesty's face because they could already feel the Emperor's suppressed rage. At this time, Xiao Ho turned to look at Xiao Su, who was not far away, but was surprised to see his indifferent expression. He thought for a moment, then smiled slightly. This person had never relied on external forces and was very clear about his relationship with the Liang family. Occasionally, he would intervene in the Liang family's affairs, but the Liang family's ambition had probably disappointed him to the core. Now that this had happened, he should not be surprised. And at this time, the right minister stood up. Everyone knew that the main event was here. Fu Jianrong bowed to the Sichuan Emperor, then turned to the left minister, who had been standing quietly opposite him, and said angrily, "Minister Left Minister, do you still remember the Battle of Qingshan 15 years ago, when our army was completely wiped out?" This old official does not dare to forget. Tens of thousands of soldiers died for the country, and the whole country mourned. The left minister shook his head and sighed. Seeing that he could still maintain his composure at this time, the right minister had doubts in his heart. But he did not think much of it, because His Majesty was on their side today. Left minister, of course you do not dare to forget. In your dreams at night, did those soldiers who died unjustly enter your dreams and ask for your lives? Once the right minister said this, the officials were in an uproar. The right minister snorted, then turned to the emperor and said, "Your Majesty, the battle 15 years ago was not because the commander did not make good decisions, but because someone cooperated with the enemy country and manipulated it in the dark, so that the enemy country could retain its strength and retreat. This person is our left minister." This is the letter they exchanged back then. The right minister presented it with both hands, and someone immediately came to take it. He cast a mocking smile at the left minister. This letter was forged, but His Majesty wanted to uproot the Liang family, so he did not care about the authenticity of these letters. The right prime minister's words were like a huge thunderclap that exploded in the hall. Everyone sucked in a breath of air and looked at the left prime minister. After the Sichuan emperor finished reading the letters in his hand, his face full of anger, he was so angry that he threw them down. "My most trusted left minister, how do you explain things now?" Xiao Ho glanced at the people in the hall. He had not attended court for a long time, so he did not know that these people's acting skills had reached the point of perfection. This was going to be interesting. He really didn't know how eldest imperial brother would deal with this. Although he didn't want to get involved, eldest imperial brother was still his biological uncle. Moreover, no matter what, the Liang family was still on his side. If they fell, then his position in the imperial court would plummet, not to mention the reputation he had earned in the past few years among the common people. Chapter 1350. However, Xiao Su's reaction had always been out of his expectations. He stood silently to the side. No matter how many people looked at him and saw him as the savior of the world, he was indifferent. It was as though there was nothing else in his eyes other than the brick on the ground. Many people craned their necks to look at the brick to see what was so good about it. Xiao Ho frowned slightly. Was he really not going to care about the Liang family this time? Even so, he could not escape the trap his father had set for him today. He suddenly did not understand this brother of his. Or rather, after all these years, he had never understood him. Just as he was deep in thought, the left prime minister, who was the focus of everyone's attention, slowly walked out. There was no fear or unease on his face at the accusations of the right prime minister's faction. There was only an unexpected calmness and an undisguised mockery at the corner of his mouth. The right prime minister was slightly flustered by his mocking gaze. Even though the right prime minister was the eldest son of the previous right prime minister and was a generation younger than him, but over the years, he had suffered many losses at the hands of this person. In the officialdom, seniority was not determined by age. Thus, the right prime minister frowned and looked at him fearfully. He did not know if he was deliberately mystifying or if he really had a plan. But in this situation, even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, it would be difficult to reverse the situation. The left prime minister snorted lightly in his heart. Then he turned to the Sichuan emperor and raised his hands in a salute. His face was sorrowful. "Your Majesty, I have been wronged. Let's not talk about the accusations of the other officials. I will talk about the battle of Qingshan 15 years ago. There was indeed someone who played tricks. The person who played tricks is also in the court." He did not beat around the bush and looked directly at the right prime minister. It was the right prime minister who acted like a thief and cried thief. Hearing this, the right prime minister immediately counterattacked. "Liang Song, don't slander me. I have evidence, do you? Slandering an official of the court, according to the law, you should be executed." Is the right prime minister angry out of humiliation? Ministers was sneered, and then continued to speak to the gloomy Sichuan emperor. "Recently, I have also received evidence about the battle. Although I don't know who sent it, the imprint on it is real." As he spoke, Prime Minister Xiao also took out a stack of letters from his bosom. At this time, eunuch Xiao immediately took the letters and handed them to prime ministers while under Sichuan emperor's indication. The right prime minister was a little flustered. Seeing His Majesty flip through the papers one by one, he felt even more uncertain. He turned to look angrily at the left prime minister. Liang Song, don't think that His Majesty will believe you just because you fabricated evidence. You have committed a heinous crime and will be punished sooner or later. The left prime minister looked at him coldly. Right prime minister, these words are exactly what I wanted to say to you. Don't go for wool and come home shorn. Before the right minister could finish his words, a wave of pressure came down from above. Everyone shuddered and instantly fell silent. No one saw how hard Xichen Emperor was gripping the paper, but his face was so gloomy that it could drip water. No one dared to look at him directly. The right prime minister felt His Majesty's bone-chilling gaze on him. His palms suddenly became sweaty. Could it be that the letters were real? You both have evidence and accuse each other. I have a headache because of your quarreling. Minister of the Supreme Court. The Sichuan emperor suppressed the irritation and anger in his heart and called out in court. The minister of the Supreme Court stood up. I am here. These two pieces of evidence are for you. You must find out the truth for me. No matter how many people are involved, you must deal with them according to the law. I will send the imperial guards to assist you. If you can't deal with it impartially, you can deal with your black gauze hat yourself. The Sichuan emperor's words made the minister of the Supreme Court's legs tremble. He immediately knelt down to accept the order. His Majesty had thrown a hot potato into his hands. Both sides were unshakable parties in the court. No matter which side he offended, he would not have a good ending. But His Majesty had made his stance clear. This time, it was more important for him to cling to His Majesty's thigh. The Sichuan emperor's heart at this time was itching to tear apart the good right minister in front of him. But today's situation was set up for Xiao Su and the Liang family. He could not touch the Fu family first. Otherwise, he would be playing into the hands of Xiao Su and the left minister. From the actions of the left minister's faction today, it could be seen that they had come prepared. Because after the minister of the Supreme Court left, the people of the left minister's faction came forward to accuse the right minister's faction of conniving with their subordinates, abusing their power, deceiving the world, and stuffing their own pockets. From buying and selling official positions to exploiting the wealth of the people, the list of crimes was no less serious than the 108 crimes of the Liang family. The civil and military officials who had not been implicated were so shocked by this turn of events that they could not say a word. The two largest parties in the imperial court did not maintain a harmonious relationship on the surface. They began to shed all pretenses of cordiality, biting each other and swearing to fight to the death with each other. Every matter they said was enough to shock the imperial court. When one scandal after another was exposed, the West Xian emperor was infuriated. He had thought that he had single-handedly created a prosperous country, but he had never thought that it was this group of officials who had deceived him on the surface. Every day at court, they sang his praises, only reporting the good news and not the bad. As a result, he had no idea that his country had long been nibbled away by these people to the point that it was about to lose its foundation. Good, you are all worthy of being my good officials. I have a whole new level of respect for you. The Sichuan emperor was so angry that he laughed. His eyes swept over these trembling officials. It was sad and laughable. His hand firmly gripped the dragon throne, and he resisted the urge to fling his sleeves and leave. Hand these matters over to the minister of the Supreme Court to investigate. Do not let any of the corrupt officials go. The minister of the Supreme Court was about to cry. These matters involved more than half of the officials in the court. How could he, a small Supreme Court, deal with them? At this time, the Sichuan emperor also reacted. He swept his eyes over the people in the court and suddenly found that he could not trust any of the people he had trusted in the past. He wished he could knock them off the dragon throne. Finally, his gaze fell on Commandery Prince Chong He, who had been a senior official for 3 dynasties. Last time, when they fought against Nansong, it was he who suggested that Xiao Su take command. Although he knew that only Xiao Su was qualified, he still took his anger out on Commander Prince Chong He for talking too much. At this moment he realized that the only person he could trust and use was Commander Prince Chong He. Monarch Chong He, the Minister of the Supreme Court, is understaffed. I will have to trouble you to oversee the Supreme Court and investigate the crimes committed by these officials with the Minister of the Supreme Court. The Sichuan Emperor's sincere words made Commander Prince Chong He sigh softly. He had reached the age where he should retire and return to his hometown. It was only because he was worried that this country did not have a successor that he slowly delayed. Now that he saw this scene, needless to say, he was mentally and physically exhausted. At this time, he could not refuse. He went up to the Sichuan Emperor and cupped his hands. This old official obeys. Chapter 1351. Being able to become a senior official of 3 dynasties was not only because he had lived long enough, but also because of his conduct and the achievements he had made for the country. Commander Prince Chongha had served 3 emperors and was highly valued under them. This was because he was not only knowledgeable, but also could run at the front every time the country was in trouble and the people were in danger. He was different from those officials who were afraid of death. During the drought 20 years ago, the flood 30 years ago, and the enemy's attack 50 years ago, he was the one who ran at the front line for the emperor. When his wife gave birth to a child, he was still bravely fighting against the enemy. His son, who had been raised to fight against the disaster, was caught in the torrential flood while saving the people. In the end, his grandson also sacrificed himself for the country and the people. This family's contribution to the Sichuan kingdom was obvious to all. Therefore, there was a reason why the Sichuan emperor gave him this important task at this time. Among the ministers present, there must be some of his trusted aides. However, after experiencing the dogfight just now, he realized that after being the emperor for so many years, he couldn't even see people clearly. When he looked around, he couldn't even find a single person he could trust. He suddenly felt that he was very pitiful. However, even if he wanted to purge the court, he had to solve the most urgent matter in front of him. What happened today had already sounded the alarm in his heart. He could not let the situation go out of his control. Take these officials involved away. The left and right prime ministers have worked hard and made great contributions, but the truth has not been found out. After the court, stay in your own mansions first. I will send people to protect your safety. When the truth is out, I will announce your confrontation. Don't worry, I will prove your innocence, but I will not let any sinner go. With that, these officials, who were suspects and accusers of the case, were taken away by the imperial guards in these unclear relationships. Xiao Ho looked at the 2 prime ministers in front of him who were obviously struggling to stand, and then lowered his head to play with the exquisite lock in his hand. It seemed that the eldest brother did not say anything, but that was not the case. The Liang family's move looked like the eldest brother's. He was a person who either did not make a move, or once he made a move, he would definitely make the other party anxious. For so many years, he had suffered a lot from him. Xiao Ho let out a low chuckle and continued to reduce his presence. The mighty stream of people rushed out of the hall. The rest of the ministers who were not affected looked at their former colleagues who were escorted out of the hall. They broke out in cold sweat and wished they could leave the court as soon as possible. Everything that happened today was beyond what they could bear. The dragon would definitely not stop in his anger. They had to hurry home to take refuge. However, Sichuan Emperor did not want to give up. After the incident just now, Sichuan Emperor's eyes were very cold and sharp. He glanced at his eldest son, Xiao Su, who hadn't said a word since the beginning. After watching from the sidelines for so long, he must be very proud of himself. He snorted in his heart and then said slowly, "King of England, Prince Yi was assassinated when he went to Hugua Temple a few days ago. Do you know about this?" "I know a thing or two." Xiao Su stood out and responded faintly. After so many things happened, his father still had the energy to deal with him. It seemed that he was a thorn in his father's heart. Xiao Ho was also a little surprised. He knew that the most important thing at this time was to appease the court instead of making waves. He didn't expect his father to be so stubborn. There would be a good show to watch later. I don't know much. On the day General Li came back to the capital and saved Prince Yi on the way to Mount Feng. I have asked General Li to investigate this matter. I don't know how he is doing. General Li, come out and tell us about the progress. Sichuan Emperor asked the King of England at first, and now he asked General Li to come out. Everyone could see the twists and turns during this period. His Majesty was suspecting the King of England of assassinating Prince, but was it credible? Li Weiyuan strode out. He didn't look at Xiao Su but faced the Sichuan Emperor directly. Your Majesty, I followed the clues left at the scene and found that these people were very similar to the fierce cavalry of His Royal Highness. I suspect that this matter has something to do with the King of England. Everyone present knew that Li Weiyuan was on the Sichuan Emperor's side. It wasn't difficult to see that he represented the Emperor's intention since he spoke so bluntly. Whether this matter was done by the King of England or not, His Majesty wouldn't let the King of England off easily. Because if he wanted to turn a blind eye, he wouldn't say it in the court. Everyone shuddered. The Sichuan Emperor looked at Xiao Su with cold eyes. King of England, do you have any explanation for General Li's words? Faced with this kind of accusation, there was no need to worry about excuses. Xiao Su didn't expect to go back safely when he entered the palace today. At this moment, some ministers in the court stood out one after another before Xiao Su responded. Your Majesty, could General Li have made a mistake? His Royal Highness has no reason to send people to assassinate Prince. An old minister who had been an official for many years saluted the Sichuan Emperor and then raised his objection. With the first objection, there was a second one. Your Majesty, His Royal Highness has done his best for the court. He has worked hard and made great contributions. He is kind to the people and strict in leading troops. He doesn't look like the kind of person who would kill his own brothers. Yes, Your Majesty. Is there any misunderstanding, or is someone trying to frame him? As an official of the court who worked for the Emperor, it was like asking a tiger for its skin. It was already an instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. But at this moment, they dared to stand out for the future development of the country. These people were basically neutral parties. They supported the court and were loyal to the country, not the Emperor or a prince. Although His Royal Highness Prince Ying did not grow up in the royal family, they were not stupid. They had eyes and could see that this was a very suitable and outstanding future successor. They would not allow anyone to slander him and strangle this good seedling to death. Therefore, even if they had to face His Majesty's anger, they could not sit and wait for death. Although they cherished their lives, they cared more about the country's future. The Sichuan Emperor didn't expect so many people to come forward to plead for Xiao Su in the blink of an eye. And the person in question didn't even say a word to defend himself. He suddenly felt a surge of anger in his heart. His son hadn't done anything yet, but he had gained so much support. If he didn't get rid of him, he would definitely endanger the country he worked so hard to build. It would be even more difficult for Ranner to inherit the throne. Just as the Sichuan Emperor was about to speak with a cold face, a gentle voice sounded from an inconspicuous corner of the hall. Father, since this matter arose because of I should have the right to speak. Chapter 1352. These words sounded very abrupt at such a quiet moment, but the voice was as gentle as a spring breeze, and it also made the anxious atmosphere a little more relaxed. It was not until the voice faded that the crowd realized that the speaker was Xiao Ho, Prince. The Sichuan Emperor noticed that his third son was also in the court. He looked over and saw the sickly figure slowly walking out from behind the officials. His face was pale and bloodless, and his steps were as soft as cotton. His body was getting thinner and thinner. Apart from the gentle smile on his face, everything else about him was fragile. He was slightly stunned. How long had it been since he last saw his son? Why did he lose so much weight? Perhaps it was because of his fragile appearance. The Sichuan Emperor lowered his voice and asked, Prince Yi, what do you want to say? Don't worry. Just tell me what you want to say. I will uphold justice for you. His third son had been recuperating in the mansion for many years. Compared to his brothers, he rarely participated in the political affairs of the court. He was more like a blank piece of paper, modest and amiable. However, for some reason, the Sichuan emperor felt that he didn't like Xiao Su as much as his brothers did. Therefore, the Sichuan emperor was relieved to let Xiao Ho have the right to speak. If Xiao Ho could deal a fatal blow to Xiao Su, that would be the best. He could then take advantage of the situation and imprison him. Xiao Ho raised his eyes and glanced at his father. He didn't miss the calculation in his father's eyes. He lowered his head and smiled. His father probably wanted to use him as a tool, but he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to do as he wished today. Father, I do want you to uphold justice for I. Good. Chao Ji, find a seat for Prince. The Sichuan emperor was delighted. Looking at his son who was on the verge of collapsing, he immediately asked Chao Ji to bring a chair for him. He was afraid that his son would faint before he could speak. A hint of ridicule flashed through Xiao Ho's eyes, but it quickly disappeared into the corner of his eyes. Imperial Father, I am also very puzzled about the assassination attempt. I usually stay in the residence to recuperate. I don't fight with anyone and have nothing to do with them. Why is it that when I go out, I attract a fatal disaster? But after knowing who the other party was, I also understood. Xiao Ho's words were as gentle and warm as spring water. Everyone quieted down to listen to him. Sichuan Emperor was very satisfied, but he still asked with concern, "Who wants to kill you?" Xiao Ho sighed softly, then said with great grief, "That person is the son of the Southern Blue Nation's Prime Minister, Yu Qingxi. He's also the minister in charge of this marriage." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd went into an uproar. This was simply different from what they had imagined. How did a minister appear out of nowhere? Even the Sichuan emperor, who was usually calm in handling matters, was dumbfounded by Xiao Ho's words that didn't follow common sense. Xiao Su, who was originally part of the situation, stood like an outsider. He looked with some surprise at the person sitting with his back to him. He thought that Xiao Ho would take the opportunity to retaliate at this time, but unexpectedly he didn't. Where did this go wrong? This was the first time today that Xiao Su showed any emotion other than indifference. Sichuan Emperor's expression became much colder. What exactly is going on? Xiao Ho didn't care about the reactions of the people present. He hung his head and said mournfully, "When Lord Yu was in Southern Blue, he liked the princess, but the princess was pure and didn't like this sanctimonious hypocrite. Later, when the princess came to the capital, Lord Yu followed. When he saw that the princess was betrothed to a sickly person like me, he was jealous and envious, so he planned this assassination." At this point, Xiao Ho raised his hand to cover his eyes. His voice became even more desolate. When the princess found out about Lord Yu's plan, she rushed to Feng Tai Mountain to warn me. However, no one expected that the other party had already made his move. In order to save me, the princess fell off a cliff and never. At this point, Xiao Ho was choked with sobs. Everyone present, including the Xixian emperor, was shocked by this trembling, sickly prince who was sobbing uncontrollably. Grief spread from Xiao Ho's body to the surroundings. Everyone couldn't help but fall silent. Xiao Ho had previously stated that he would only have Pang Jijing as his wife in this lifetime. Such a story of unswerving loyalty had already spread throughout the capital. These ministers were often talked about by their wives at home. Now that they knew the true story of the couple, they couldn't help but sigh. Soon someone stood out. "Your Majesty, that Southern Blue person is too much. How dare he bully us? Does he think that there's no one left in our Sichuan? Prince Yi and the princess's love is stronger than gold, but in the end, they were separated by life and death. This humble subject can't bear to see this. Your Majesty, please punish the culprit severely." This humble subject agrees. This humble subject also agrees. The ministers' voices grew louder and louder, echoing in the main hall for a long time. Sichuan Emperor looked at the ministers who were filled with righteous indignation and found it difficult to back down. The Southern Blue person's petty actions under his nose were actually a challenge to his authority. However, at this moment, every single matter on hand was more urgent than this matter. He couldn't help but feel that Southern Blue would definitely find trouble with him. Even if he didn't care, these ministers wouldn't let it go so easily. They had long disliked Southern Blue. If it wasn't for Southern Blue taking the initiative to negotiate a settlement, they would have already threatened to invade Southern Blue's lair. Sichuan Emperor looked at Xiao Ho, who was still immersed in grief. He felt that Xiao Ho was an eyesore and a disappointment, which made him even more displeased. It was just a woman. Was it worth it to go through so much trouble and mess up his plans? What a failure! Sichuan Emperor vented his anger on Xiao Ho. His tone became much worse. All right, I will investigate General Li and give you justice. Xiao Ho cupped his hands. Many thanks, Imperial Father. Sichuan Emperor looked at the chaotic court and felt even more irritated. He decided not to proceed according to plan. His malicious gaze fell on Xiao Su. He gave a few instructions to Eunuch Xiao before announcing the end of the court session. The remaining ministers heaved a sigh of relief as if they had just survived a disaster. Today's morning court session was the longest and most torturous one in history. They all hurried home, afraid that something unexpected would happen. However, before they left, some ministers passed by Xiao Ho and said sympathetically, "My condolences." Xiao Ho returned their greetings. It wasn't until a tall figure appeared in front of him that Xiao Ho raised his head to look at the person with his back facing the light. His lips curved slightly. "Eldest brother, are you also here to express your condolences? Why are you helping me?" Xiao Su asked the question in his heart. Xiao Ho wasn't surprised at all. He smiled lightly. "You're still so direct." Xiao Su was surprised by his attitude. He wasn't as sharp as he used to be. To put it bluntly, he was no longer hiding a dagger behind his smile. "If you want to deal with me, go ahead. I won't." Before Xiao Su could finish speaking, Xiao Ho gently interrupted him. "Eldest brother, you misunderstand." Xiao Su frowned and looked at him when he heard this. He pondered the meaning of his words as if he wanted to see through him. Chapter 1353. Knowing that his actions today would arouse suspicion, Xiao Ho couldn't help but smile when he saw Xiao Su sizing him up. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "It's nothing. Third younger brother is seriously injured, so take care of yourself." Xiao Su didn't know if he could feel the faint goodwill from Xiao Ho, so he blurted out. When he finished speaking, both of them were stunned. It seemed that they hadn't treated each other so calmly in the past dozen years. Xiao Ho was the first to speak. "Eldest brother, I have offended you in the past, but I will make up for it. Regardless of whether Imperial brother believes me or not, I will not oppose you in the future." Xiao Su wasn't someone who held grudges, and the other party was his own brother. Although he had schemed against him many times over the years, he hadn't suffered much. He had gotten his revenge afterwards. He had schemed against him, and he had retaliated. In fact, they were about the same. "When you recover, if there's a chance, let's spar and settle the score." Although Xiao Su didn't care that his third brother had attacked him, he had attacked the little fellow several times. This was something he couldn't forgive easily. Of course, he didn't expect his eldest brother to understand the grudge between them so easily. At this time, Eunuch Xiao hurried over. When he saw Xiao Su and Xiao Ho, he respectfully bowed. Then he turned to Xiao Su and said, "His Royal Highness, His Majesty has an important matter to discuss with you. Please come with this old servant to the Imperial study immediately." Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. He knew that there was something staring at him today. Xiao Ho also heard Eunuch Xiao's words. Slight mockery flashed through his eyes. He didn't want to stay any longer. Ever since he moved out of the Imperial Palace, he had become more and more displeased with the atmosphere here. "Eldest brother, take care." Although he didn't like it, he still cupped his hands and sincerely wished his eldest brother, whose future was uncertain. Xiao Su's brows moved slightly, and he nodded at him. "About sister-in-law, please restrain your grief." In the hall, Xiao Ho covered his face in sorrow. Although he was absolving him of his crime, and he knew that this person was very good at acting, he still heard some true sorrow. Thinking of the little fellow's evaluation of Xiao Ho and Pang Zhijing, he couldn't help but add. Xiao Ho was slightly taken aback. This was the most heartfelt condolences he had heard today. While he was in a daze, Xiao Su had already turned around and left. Xiao Ho looked at the tall and handsome figure disappearing bit by bit into the scorching afternoon sun, and a trace of sadness flashed through his heart. Everyone said that this was the world's biggest gold mine, but they didn't know that this was actually hell on earth. The people here were either torturing themselves or being tormented by others. They were princes, but they lived like neither humans nor ghosts. He didn't know if his brother, who had been rolling on the edge of a knife for many years, could safely walk out of this hell today. Xiao Ho turned around. His back was lonely. His sleeves puffed up in the wind as if they were about to fly, but he just slowly walked down the stone steps like this. When Xiao Su came to the imperial study, the people outside didn't report and directly opened the door to let him in. Xiao Su raised his head and looked into the dim hall. He didn't hesitate and directly went in. The door quickly closed behind him. Everyone was shut outside, including the Sichuan Emperor's most valued eunuch Xiao. Eunuch Xiao looked at the tightly closed door and thought of the things that His Majesty had asked him to prepare. His eyes were hot and he almost cried. "You're here." When he was in the hall, before he even walked to the center, he heard an old and emotionless voice ring out in the hall. Xiao Su raised his head to look at the person and said indifferently, "Yes." The person with his back facing him slowly turned around. The disguised kindness in his eyes had been peeled off, and undisguised malice fell on the person in front of him. "The backup plan that prime ministers were prepared today was given by you, right?" "It's just an eye for an eye," Xiao Su replied indifferently. "An eye for an eye." Sichuan Emperor laughed and then quickly became indifferent. "Su, your wings have hardened, really hardened. You actually dare to rebel against Imperial Father. Very well." Xiao Su curled his lips. This was his Imperial Father. After his scheme failed, he blamed others. If one didn't know better, they might not even be able to tell that they were father and son. Is it possible that someone wants to harm I and I can't resist? I have always believed that if someone respects me, I will respect them tenfold and vice versa. Sichuan Emperor's eyes revealed a playful look. "If this person was me, would you also return an eye for an eye?" Xiao Su retracted his gaze and didn't answer. "Su, what you did this time is not like you. Tell me, is it because I left you outside for too long that your heart has become wild and you dare to oppose Imperial Father?" Sichuan Emperor sat on the dragon throne. His voice was gentle like a loving father's, but there was a ruthlessness in his words that made one shudder. Xiao Su looked up calmly. "Imperial Father, I remember that I was always on the defensive. The one who attacked was you. All these years, you never stopped probing, assassinating and framing." He had already become numb to it. "Then what about this time? Why are you helping the Liang family?" Sichuan Emperor looked at him coldly. Xiao Su laughed self-deprecatingly. "Imperial Father, don't forget that the Liang family is Imperial Mother's maiden family. No matter how much you fight, no matter how much Imperial Mother dislikes this son will make sure that she has a place to rely on. Moreover, if the Liang family falls, wouldn't you be happy to see it happen? This way, you can push I to the brink of despair without any scruples?" The Sichuan Emperor was speechless for a moment when he put it so bluntly. He originally thought that this son of his was a taciturn person who wouldn't say a word after 10 strokes. It seemed that he had underestimated him. Looking at the person whose thoughts he had exposed, Xiao Su felt that if it was 5 years ago, he would definitely be in pain and discomfort. The person who had wholeheartedly wanted to be filial to him not only didn't have a place for him in his heart, but also didn't treat him as his own son. Perhaps he didn't care and died on the battlefield. However, now that he had exposed all of this, he didn't feel as bad as he had expected. Yes, he was no longer the child who had been abandoned by his parents. He had companions he could trust by his side, father-in-law and mother-in-law who treated him as half a son, and a little fellow who loved him to the bone. Therefore, whether he had biological parents or not didn't seem to be that important anymore. Imperial Father, if it was in the past, I might have said that if the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. But now I already have someone I want to protect, a family, and a tie to this world. I won't easily compromise with you. Xiao Su looked into the Sichuan emperor's eyes and spoke word by word. His gaze was firm and cold. The person in front of him was now just a biological father who had given birth to him but had never raised him. Xiao Su's performance today greatly surprised the Sichuan emperor. He rubbed the poison in his hand. He knew that it wasn't a good time to attack Xiao Su, but what had happened in the morning court had left him with no time to deal with him. Therefore, Xiao Su had to leave his life here today. Chapter 1354. In the dark imperial study, the two people, one sitting and one standing, were both silent. The Sichuan emperor secretly sized up the person in front of him, as if he wanted to see him for the last time. After all, he was his flesh and blood. Even if he wanted to take his life, he still had a trace of reluctance. But today, the Liang family and the Fu family had shed all pretenses of cordiality. Their dirty deeds of deceit were exposed, and they were involved in collusion with other countries, which involved half of the important officials in the imperial court. The country was in a crisis. If it was not handled well, the entire Sichuan would be finished. And the person in front of him was a ticking time bomb. At this critical moment, if he did not get rid of him first, he would take advantage of the fact that he had set him up and put his fiancée under house arrest. Then the country would be in danger. His plan had been completely disrupted. At this time, he had made a last-minute decision to attack Xiao Su. He had to get rid of this trouble before he dealt with the Liang family and the Fu family. The Sichuan emperor's fingers stopped rubbing. He raised his hand and put the porcelain bottle on the table. His dark eyes were dark. Su, don't blame your father for being ruthless. Xiao Su knew why he had called him in today, but he still wanted to see how far this person, who had schemed to get rid of him, would go. Although he had disappointed her time and time again over the years, she still longed for the person she looked up to, and for the person to treat her with genuine love and affection. Now that he saw the bottle of medicine, he felt that he could finally give up on that thought. He could finally give up on the palace and the people in it completely. Xiao Su's gaze moved away from the porcelain bottle and finally fell on the person behind the table. If I dies, you will have the energy to focus on dealing with the right and left prime ministers. You will uncover all the evil deeds they have done over the years, and then take back the power in their hands. In the past, you turned a blind eye, but now you are ready to be ruthless. The reason, Xiao Su's eyes dimmed. Is it to pave the way for fourth brother? His words were filled with doubt, but they were spoken with certainty. Sichuan emperor was a little surprised by Xiao Su's calmness in granting death and his clear analysis of his motives. However, he was not surprised when he recalled that his son had always been cold and intelligent. Since you already know, Zhen will not beat around the bush with you. You can leave without worry. Zhen will not make things difficult for your imperial mother. Zhen will let her enjoy glory, splendor, wealth, and enjoy the rest of her life. As for your subordinates, as long as they are willing to submit to the court and serve your fourth imperial brother, Zhen will not pursue the matter. The Sichuan emperor knew that Ran had a lot of capable people by his side, plus he had a group of elite soldiers and strong generals. If they could be used by Ran, it would be of great help to him when he inherited the throne in the future. Xiao Su knew very well what this person was up to after having clashed with him so many times in secret. Imperial father. Xiao Su met his father's gaze. The surging emotions in his eyes suddenly calmed down. Sichuan emperor was stunned by his cold and cheerless voice. Then he said magnanimously, "If you have any unfulfilled wishes, say them all. Imperial father will fulfill them as long as it is within my means." He was so forgiving towards him right before his death. Xiao Su's lips curled up in a mocking smile. Ian said that people's hearts are biased. I'm afraid you won't be able to find another person as biased as you are in this world. Fortunately, his little fellow only had him in his heart and cared for him wholeheartedly. That way, he wouldn't be devastated by his father's abandonment at this time. Xiao Su felt that his world had collapsed for him. You, Sichuan Emperor reacted after hearing this and flew into a rage out of humiliation. However, the life and death of the person in front of him was already in his hands. There was no need for him to get angry. As long as he pushed the bottle forward, this eyesore of his would no longer be an eyesore to him. Sichuan Emperor sighed softly and resumed his condescending appearance. He said calmly, "Imperial Father knows that you've suffered a lot since you were a child. Before you die, you can tell me as much as you want. Imperial Father will listen." Xiao Su's mouth twitched. "Imperial Father, I have always wanted to know why you couldn't tolerate ice since I was a child. Now that things have come to this point, I don't want to ask or know anything." The silence of grief was greater than the death of his heart. It didn't matter whether he knew the reason or not. The little fellow said that it was a kind of fate for people to meet each other. It was also a kind of fate for them to become father and son. However, not every kind of fate was good. We can't choose our own parents, birth, and appearance, but we can decide our own future. Xiao Su knelt down while the Sichuan Emperor was in a daze. Then he kowtowed 3 times to his surprise. "Imperial Father, I believe that I have repaid the kindness of you giving birth to me and raising me in the past 10 or 20 years. From now on, I have nothing to do with the imperial family and you." After saying this, Xiao Su stood up without waiting for a response. "Xiao Su, what are you doing?" Sichuan Emperor was frightened by his resolute words. He looked at him warily with his turbid eyes. If he made any strange movements, he would immediately call for help. "Your Majesty, don't worry. Even if you're a tiger that eats its own children, I won't kill my father." His words carried a sense of alienation. After saying this, he turned and walked toward the door of the hall. "Xiao Su, how dare you leave?" Before the Sichuan Emperor finished speaking, Xiao Su had already pushed open the door indifferently. Eunuch Xiao was standing at the door and reached out to knock. When he saw Xiao Su, he couldn't help but be stunned. Xiao Su put one hand on his waist. If he dared to act rashly, he wouldn't be polite. Eunuch Xiao didn't notice the murderous look in his eyes. He nodded at him and quickly walked into the hall. "Your Majesty, Commander Prince Chonghe said that he has something to report." Sichuan Emperor was about to order people to stop Xiao Su. When he heard this, he ignored it. However, on second thought, Commander Prince Chonghe was entrusted with an important task today. If he didn't take it seriously, it would be disadvantageous for him to handle the case. Thus, he said in a low voice, "Eunuch Xiao, the King of England tried to assassinate me just now. Order the palace guards to detain him." Eunuch Xiao was stunned. Rather than detain, it was more appropriate to use the word detain. Sichuan Emperor was displeased by his reaction. "Why are you standing there like a fool? Quickly invite the Commander Prince in." Eunuch Xiao scrambled out of the hall. Commander Prince Chonghe looked at Xiao Su in front of him and patted him on the shoulder. He sighed and said helplessly, "Child, you've suffered." After saying this, Commander Prince Chonghe staggered into the hall without waiting for Xiao Su's response. At this age, some things didn't need to be said. His eyes were blind, but his heart wasn't. When the door of the hall was closed again, Xiao Su looked at the palace guards who surrounded him. His fingers rested on the hilt of the sword at his waist. The little fellow had once said that every child was the treasure that their parents held in their mouths and held in their palms. He had never experienced it in his life, but he would let his children experience the love of their parents. He and the little fellow would have their own treasures. Therefore, before that, he wouldn't compromise so easily. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.